Mike's on.
Alright, and they should be live there. Alright. And can you guys hear the fan in the background?
You have a fan in the background?
Okay, perfect. That is the answer that I was looking for. I gotta go talk to the defunct sweeper bot.
Benedict.
I like my name for him better.
I mean, that works too.
Ever since that lore piece with Ava Levante making Benedict hang decorations.
How he's scared of her.
Benedict's precious to me. Don't touch him.
It's
he
so
is
funny.
kind of this precious little.
He's like, runs away with the streamers.
Can you blame him though?
No, I don't. I don't. I just. It's so funny. Oh my god, I was dying reading that because it's like you could just tell Benedict's like, please get me out of here.
Yep. Benedict the big baby.
Oh. Jeez.
I have a dog who's collapsed in the room with me. He's enjoying having his doggy bed in here.
Nice.
Hey, Doom.
We had a cold snap come through.
Yeah.
It was like 70. It was 70 yesterday, and then we woke up this morning and it was like 30. I was like, what the? Why? You guys got a blizzard.
Yeah, we had a blizzard yesterday. On the first day of spring.
Yeah, so we got, because we have branches out there, we got emails and they're like, we're closing all of them. We're like, yeah, no, we're not closing them for that reason. We're closing them because it snowed in. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Though there are branches that have like limited their hours and have gone to only drive-throughs. Drive-through banking.
Emperor Callus would be satisfied if you could convert to the Korean law sector. I love Benedict. Just go cavort over there.
Benedict is such a weirdo.
Indulge in a merciless spree. Oh shit, that's funny. Oh, I did find out the Lux armor when it's hitting the Eververse stores. So
when's that?
So different day or different weeks. The first one that's coming up is going to be should be next week. Will be the helmet. Then there will be the class item. Then the arms and the legs, and then the chest will be on week 10. So the full set won't be out until the 10th week. So that's May 12th. But it's going to be should be 1,200 dust per item. So that's what, 60,000 total.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, I want to say I have plenty of dust. I'm light on dust. So how do you get dust? You used to be able to do bounties.
Weekly bounties. It's weekly bounties from Zavala, Shax, and the Drifting.
Ah, okay.
Oh, and also their bonus bounties will also give like 10 dust.
Oh, the Drifter.
What are they talking about? What do you mean, Doom? What do you mean, Doom?
Where's the quarry? Is that the sunken
you have to do
one?
you have to do the legendary version, Blue.
Yeah.
Oh. How do you activate the legendary version?
From Rasputin's bunker. And only if it's in the daily rotation. There's 3 lost sectors in rotation for legendary.
Also, the legendary light level is 1000, so good luck.
Yeah, fuck that.
You might want to strap on Ariana's vow.
There you go.
I'm just gonna go back to the Crucible at that point.
I think it was Corey was yesterday or the
Mhm.
day before.
So it'll probably be, what is it, 3-day rotation?
Yeah,
Yep.
Alright, whatever. It's for a shotgun, so other than just clearing out the queue, I don't really have a point to do it. But in the meantime, Green, bleh. I will find language here in a second. Are we recording separately, or am I doing it on my end for this one?
What do you think, Neo? Do you have Audacity rating?
I wouldn't bank on it. I have the Windows voice recorder going, but there's no guarantee that's going to be good for you.
Oh, that's fine. I can
Gotcha.
record it on my side.
Okay.
Boo, 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 boo. Um. Green, would you like us to start?
Yes, do whatever you want.
All right. Let's get this thing rolling here. Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on March 20th, 2020, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring the lore book Letters from Eris. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the intro session of the week's exploration. Before we get any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is the Get Good and Trials Green-Eyed Music Lover for the week. Yeah.
Got some hard light going up against you, don't you?
You know, the light shows are real. The light shows are so real in Crucible right now. I feel like I'm at a rave. I just need some, I actually turned on some techno music just to, make it match what's going on the screen, because frickin' A. You guys with the hard lights, I get that it's good, but at least put on Suros so I don't have to see it. Just put on Suros. It's fine.
Oh, and last but definitely not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend Neo Mad Dog. Neo, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. Happy to be here. But I'm going to use my revoker to get rid of all those puns.
Right? So much.
Yeah, okay, go for it, Green, go for it.
Okay. Neo, we kind of chatted a little bit more online and Twitter and Discord a bit over the few years. First thing I wanted to know was just kind of the general shout outs of where can we find you online, or where if somebody wanted to reach out to you to ask you more questions about the lore or anything like that, what would be the links that you would give them?
You can just find me on Twitter at NeoMadDog. It's in the title. I don't really post anything. I'm not active on Twitter, but I keep notifications on. So if you send me a message, I'll definitely get it.
Nice. Cool. So, the second question, as always, what is your favorite lore story in Destiny?
I definitely say Emperor Callus. I just like everything about that story, from the beginning. I want more information about the conspirators that overthrew him, and then and the big question is, what did he see?
You, I think, are in a slight minority in that one. I want to know more about this. Is it the draw of what is eventually could happen with it, especially with what we got with the Fourth Horseman story that was just started coming out, or what drew you into him in particular?
Well, I think what drew me in initially was the first Leviathan raid, is reading all the lore tabs that came with the armor set and the weapons, and you realize oh, there's a lot more going on with the Cabal than just warmongering turtles. that want to blow up planets. A
Right.
whole culture behind it that I think is really fascinating, and also like they have obviously have the resource to make big things, and I want to see like what did Callus make, because he doesn't seem to be too much of a warmonger.
In comparison to some of like the more military ones, yeah, for sure. From there though, like, is that the story that really got you drawn into it? Because I know I've seen you around before the Kala story became a big thing. Like, is there a particular story in Destiny that really drew you in, or?
I think, like, I guess so. To go back, like how I got into Destiny is like I think I started playing in vanilla D1. I played the beta, but I didn't buy it initially. I actually rented it for like a week, a month after, and I didn't really care much for the story. I'm used to the grandiose stories that Halo gave us, and like,
Mhm.
and vanilla D1 was admittedly lackluster,
Right.
and I just kind of put off Destiny from then. But around Taken King, I just said, wait a minute, there's more going on here. And I think I saw a Mylan video around that time where like the Books of Sorrow, and I'm like, oh, actually, Books of Sorrow came later, obviously, but I think that was when I started getting into the lore. It's like, oh, there's more to than just what's on the screen.
Yeah, for sure. So Myelin is kind of like that entry drug for you to get into it. Is there a particular story that back in D1, I guess, would be the one that drew you in? Because
Uh,
Callus is only D2, so was there something in D1 that really got you going, or?
yeah, I would probably say the Reef Wars, that which came out with the House of Wolves. I like chronicles of like battles and politics around it. And I thought that was really interesting how you had these three individual wannabe Kells in the House of Wolves after their initial Kell died by the Harbingers, and
Mm-hmm.
they kind of vying each other for power, getting the Awoken attack one side so they can climb up the ranks, and then ultimately Skolas came out on top and then was given to the Nine after their defeat.
Right. Okay. And before we get to kind of the crazy question that I told you I would ask you, what is your primary class?
I started off as a hunter, but now I main warlock, jump and all. Um, but I play all three, but warlock's my favorite.
Okay, we'll forgive you.
Yeah, especially D2 Warlock. The jump makes more
Actu-
sense.
It does make more sense, and I actually have less saltiness for most warlocks, even though I kind of give warlocks just crap in general because they're easy to make fun of because they get a little verklempt sometimes. But um,
No.
When the
just the
when the Whisper mission came out, my friend who I always play Destiny with basically ordered me not to play on not to play on a warlock, so I could actually do the jumping puzzles, even though I'm
yeah.
pretty good with warlock jump.
I mean, it's easy now. Luckily, I mean. The Whisper mission, because of the light level being such a huge discrepancy, you can do Whisper solo basically now.
I
Light
saw
levels.
an
Oh,
I
so
saw an
good.
esoteric video about it. That was really funny. I told my friend about it, and he soloed it right
Yeah,
after.
it's not too bad. Basically, Blue, if you wanted to go get Whisper, now is the
I
time
love
to
how
do it.
I love how this suddenly turned into basically Blue. If you want to go get that.
You can get Outbreak too, Blue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
can.
heard about that one.
I think the Outbreak jumping puzzle is a little bit more difficult than the Whisper one, though.
Yeah, because
But
I've been told the same, that the
yeah,
outbreak jumping puzzle is a bit of a fun one.
that's okay though. As long as you're not. I mean, the basic one isn't too bad, but it's the getting the catalyst that's always a little bit more tricky. But Neo, I was going to ask you about your opinion of this season's gear because you were talked to me about how you are a bit more of a fashionista of a warlock and how you are really into like getting your gear sets to look exactly how you want. How do you feel about this season's gear with the streetwear?
Oh, I love
The
the
pimp
streetwear
lock.
stuff. I love the pimp. I'm like, there's a Discord channel
Hmm.
from the subreddit Warlocks Rise Up. which is only Warlock mains, and the sub icon now is the pimp coat.
That's awesome.
I love it. And the Titan set got a bad rap because the picture initially, but if you put shaders on it, it's actually pretty good.
It's actually, yeah. I haven't seen too many too many Titans look. I just think the colors that they chose for the picture is what made that one awkward.
All I can see with that one is Cole's dragons.
Oh, I know, the derpy dragons that eat sand. Not that bad. It really isn't. Like, those sets actually mix really well with other currently owned gear, which is nice.
Which I think was kind of the point too, right? Was the street aesthetic was going to kind of be a good mix match with everything.
I guess so. Like, I'm wearing the street gear. The only thing I think that I'm wearing that is not street gear is the helmet, because the helmet in the street gear is shiny, so it shows up on Crucible maps a little bit too easily. And the arms, because I want to have my Oathkeepers on. So
yeah.
But as far as like the pants and the jacket and the cloak, oh, it's so pretty. I love it.
The cloak especially. The cloak is super pretty.
Well, the cloak actually ties into the pants as far as the hunter goes.
Oh, does it? Nice.
And the warlock one actually isn't too bad. It's a little bit more, like we were kind of teasing, a little bit more pimpalicious, but you know, I don't know too many.
It is. Yeah, it is. All really he needs is a cane. All he needs is the cane.
You know, the thing is if you pick up the, oh gosh, which sword is it? There's a sword that has a dagger on the end of it. I want to say it's the one for the moon that has air.
Like, yeah. Like stuff. The one that's got the hook or the hammer thing.
If you
the climbing hook.
If you combine the Warlock pimp coat with like the Trials helmet, there's your pimp hat.
There you go.
Not the Trials of Osiris one. You need the Trials of the 9 one, because that's all out there.
Yeah, it's just, oh gosh, yeah. Wicked was running around with the sword from the moon the other day, and I was like, oh, you got your pimp cane to go with your pimp outfit now. And he's like, I'm immediately taking this off. I'm ashamed. I'm like,
I am ashamed of myself.
It's fine. It's hilarious.
You shouldn't be ashamed of that. You gotta own it.
Oh, he does. Trust me. He has no problem feeling his pimpiness, I guess, if we're gonna make this an adjective of some sort.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. But that is all for me. Blue, do you have any sort of notes for the community this week?
Yes, actually, I do actually have something that I wanted to take a moment to kind of talk about. Tonight, I just wanted to give a quick update on how everything's going to be running, starting tonight, in light of all the events going on out in the world. You know, just like with everything else, we are human, so we are affected by it all as well. We are still going to be having episodes. So don't worry about that. But the format is actually going to be a bit more relaxed. The primary changes will be we're going to put top 3 on basically a hiatus. We're going to pause top 3 for the time being. And with the plans that once schedules get a little bit more steady and events start calming down a bit, we're going to be bringing it back. So don't worry about missing out on those shenanigans or at all. For the normal FFC episodes, we are planning on still having 2 each week, so we'll still have the introduction and the advanced sessions. However, we will be a little bit more lax in those. For those in live stream, you will probably be watching us play during the show. This is actually due to the team, just the same as the rest of you guys out there, needing a bit of levity in our schedules, and really this is a way to fit kind of 2 birds with 1 stone. So that being the case, we're still going to do our utmost to maintain the accuracy of what we are speaking about. Topics are still being chosen as they currently are. Our weekly streams are still, at this time, still planned to take place every Friday evening at 10 p.m. Central. We know that for those who have spent some time with us already, and for those who might be joining us for the first time, that a sense of normalcy is really important, especially when everything else seems to be chaotically running amok. So while the environment around us is kind of uncertain, our hope is that our community can be a source of support, inspiration, and comfort for any who need it. For those who are wanting a space to talk about the events, we have opened up a new channel within our Discord server that is dedicated to discussions around current events. And for those who would prefer to take a break from all the news that is being thrown at us from pretty much every direction currently, we encourage you to join in on the other amazing discussions. So feel free to mute the channel for the current events so that you can instead take a break and just discuss something about your favorite game, your book, a favorite movie. Hopefully maybe that the freeing up of our schedules, I guess you could say, the past few days have kind of hopefully maybe given you time to catch up on. It's kind of the silver lining, I guess, of all this stuff going on. But basically, to wrap this little announcement up, I just want to remind everyone that though the journey is difficult and the road is long, we find strength in the will to endure together. So we promise that we will be there for you if you need support. Just please be safe and keep your eyes up.
Mm-hmm.
But
absolutely.
And then of course we have our standard, housekeeping notes, and we'll jump right into the intro session. Green, do you have a good cocktail knowledge for us this week?
Well, the weird thing, and we talked about this a little bit in chat between you, Neo, and I, on how this book in particular is more of a collection of letters to the Queen or Ikora rather than like a bunch of huge revelations. And so the cocktail knowledge for this book in particular is fairly light in comparison to things like Revelation or Kraken Mare. But this one in particular is it's an interesting perspective of seeing Eris go through the accumulation of the nightmares as we're going through the weeks of Shadowkeep, as well as kind of seeing her progression of empathizing with some of these various nightmares and kind of sort of getting pushed into a psychological state where she's not necessarily in the best of places by the end of it. I mean, we'll find that out as we go through them, but she sends these letters both to the Queen and to Ikora, though some of the letters are explicitly for the Queen and some of them are explicitly for Ikora. I believe Ikora only has 2 or 3 different letters. The rest of them are to the Queen.
Yeah, Ikora shares the last one, and then she has 2 others, so she technically has 3.
Yeah.
I want to interrupt you real quick because you brought up something that actually has been, I wouldn't say it's been bugging me, but it's a question that I keep coming back to every time I read these. And I think it's one of those that in hindsight, it's probably kind of obvious, but to me, I think that if you haven't read these entries or played the Nightmare Hunts, I haven't played all the hunts themselves, but I've read the transcripts and all that stuff. The thing that keeps standing out to me here as a huge question for this entire, not just this lore book, but actually this particular season, which was the core Shadowkeep season, and especially with the nightmares, was the question of whose nightmares are these? Because and this is going to probably be my one thing that I do keep coming back to, not just in the intro, but in the advanced session too, because the more and more I sit on it, I really don't think these are our nightmares.
There are some that are specifically our nightmares, but there's also ones that I don't know if Eris ever had any experience with.
The entries, though.
Right, but like Eris talks about not only Fogoth and Crota and Omnigul, which are obviously from her story, but she also mentions characters like Mindbender, Fickrul, and gosh, who else did she mention? Gaul and some of the other ones that are specific.
I mean, she would have knowledge of these, and the reason, and we'll probably get into this a lot especially when we start talking about like the psychology of it. But because and I see like the whole combination, like they take manifestation from our minds, But of all of us, you know, Eris is the one that continuously empathizes with him. And then there's also the entire essence quest that we actually,
Mm-hmm.
that this feeds into. That the essence leads into nightmare hunts, which then leads into, or the nightmare hunts give us the essence, which leads us to the essence quests, which are concurrent with the memories of Eris's fire team, who is also,
Mm-hmm.
she's the only one that's getting haunted. And it's only, I would argue, it's only through purification of those various essences that we actually are able to unlock and purify the true memories of Eris's fire team. And actually, you know, this entire DLC, I don't know, season DLC, I don't know what you want to call it. The whole story arc is really actually a really well done expose in the world of Destiny on the process of grief and depression. Like, I really do appreciate how they did Eris's kind of coming to terms with the haunting of her character. It was really, I think it was really well done.
Yeah, I do think that there are aspects that are tied specifically into the cleansing of the essences. I do think also that not only is there the cleansing of the essence, but there's the when we bring those specific artifacts to Eris to help her push past her grief, essentially, right? To help her rid herself of
Yeah,
these various ghosts.
to help her remember. I
We,
think it's remember the true memory, I think is the way they explain it.
yeah, I mean, it's remember the true memory, but it's also remember the it's remembering aspects that are not just the death. It's not just the major event. And I think that's a pretty important thing in anybody's case when it comes to depression. You have to remember that there are things outside just the major events, right? Like that's the whole point of going through and identifying, kind of seeing the brighter side of things or
Mm-hmm.
seeing the sunny side of things.
Yeah.
As terrible as a kind of analogy as that is, but with Eris in particular, we are not only showing her kind of those same memories or giving her those opportunities for it, but we're making her face her fears. And that's one of the things that in these cards you see she's absolutely, especially in these early ones, she's absolutely terrified to deal with these. She thought she had moved past them and she doesn't want to deal with them again. And it's the idea that grief comes up multiple times in your life, not just the one time and move past it. Sometimes it comes back more than once and you have to deal with it over and over again.
Yeah, the other thing that I saw, I can't remember where I saw it, but I saw someone writing about this, that they really liked the I use this word gently, time gating of the process of
Mm.
addressing these things, because it drives home in a kind of a weird way. It drives home that grief isn't done in one sitting. Like
No.
it takes time to address these things. And that's kind of like, I don't know if that was the intent. I mean, you can argue, I'm not going to get into the meta argument of it, but if, as far as like the content, that's how I kind of, as soon as I read that, I was like, you know what, that's a really cool way to kind of take up that, the way that that's presented was like, this is a message that says, you know, hey, grief, you can't cram grief into, you know, a 1 week's worth of grinding. Like, it takes weeks, it takes months, it sometimes takes years to deal with these things. And that's kind of what we had to do as guardians as we were helping Eris in addressing her memories, because if you remember with the memory quests, they were one a week. I think it was like 5, wasn't it 5 or 6 weeks? Because did they
Mm-hmm.
start the first week or did they start the second week?
It started the first week with Saimoda.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was Sai, Vel, Toland, Omar, and then finally Ariana. And so, like, I mean, but I thought that was a cool way of kind of looking at it. Was like, I was like, you know, that actually makes it really, I really appreciate that perspective of it, because that is accurate, because it gives that time frame within the world. It kind of shows, okay, this is, I've gotten this piece done, now I got to do the next piece, and you know, that's the process of healing from that type of trauma.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think that Eris is not healed
Oh no.
But that's one thing I want to
No.
make very clear. She is not healed by our efforts. Like, there are things that Eris is dealing with that we do not come anywhere near close to touching.
That would be correct, but I think that she is better. She also recognizes. She says this, and I think it's Tanix. Tanix. I think it's Tanix, the entry. But she talks about how she has realized that she was self-exiling herself, which is a common trait in those who are grieving or who are depressed. They push people away. And she kind of she addresses that piece, and she remembers it's when she talks about Cade. She says that, you know, she remembers him fondly, you know, and that was kind of always the joke between the two. They always kind of had this hate relationship. You know, it was kind of like this love hate. It was
It's
a
like that
love
little
hate.
brother hate.
Yeah. It was like a sibling relationship between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, oh gosh, what was it? Was it the webcomic that someone had where she came and put the rock on his map at the end? God, there was a webcomic that was basically
remember.
like someone after Cade had been killed, someone did like this like non-canonical little webcomic where Eris basically came and like basically left her rock on his map as kind of this kind of thing. And then I think there was the line where Cade, I think it was in Cade's stash, he made a comment to Eris about you can have it. But I think that was really a really cool entry, was because Eris realizes the importance of, you know, community, and she is completely, because there's the whole scene with, oh yeah, go for it.
I'm just thinking that as far as her and community and everything, she's still very isolated in comparison to the Guardians, comparison to Ikora. She doesn't even necessarily want to report back to the Queen at this point, according to this book. And this is one of the latest books from Shadowkeep. This takes place over the entirety of it.
Correct. Yes. And that being, or go for it, Neo.
Yeah, I think Eris is, I mean, yeah, she's still struggling, but she is sort of improving in her relationships with others. One of the big things was the Festival of the Lost quest, where you end up getting a toothbrush.
That's true.
Which is because Eris mentions, like, there, I think it was actually a voice line where, like, when I first heard about it, I thought they were like insulting me and what I went through, but now I realize it's more about celebrating the lives they used to have rather than mourning the lives that we've lost.
That toothbrush. I really want there to be like Vex cream.
I was
slightly
sad that we didn't get peanut butter, but
I know you wanted ants on a
it's
log.
just like that would have been the trifecta. It's just like we have the ascendant celery, we have the ascendant raisins, and toothpaste. Gosh, now Chad's talking about it. Peanut butter. You know, it's just like, oh my gosh, that would have been great. But
the thing I want to know is peanut butter a universal truth, or ants on a log a universal truth? Because if it's not a universal truth that every country loves ants on a log,
no,
you don't know that. Have you been to every country? Have you asked Bife this? Have you asked Mylan this?
Oh well, I'm gonna message him. Hang on.
Yeah, you should message him and figure out, is this a universal truth? Ants on a log. Is that a delicious snack?
They're gonna be like, why are you messaging me?
Also, they're probably gonna be like, what the fuck is ants on a log? Like, what are you on about?
Bife's awake right now, right?
If he's not, he's about to get a really weird message.
Yeah, we'll find out.
We'll find out here in a second. I'm messaging Mylan right now.
Oh, Lord. But I don't know. As far as,
if I hear back.
Yeah, sounds good. So, as far as the book themselves, or the entries themselves, do we want to kind of do a quick rundown? Because there's information in here mostly as I think I treat this more of an expose of Eris's continual state during Shadowkeep. I don't know if there's a ton of new information in here that reveals anything about timelines or anything like that, but we at least get kind of her descent into Eris madness, I guess, is what I would call it.
I would say like the first one really kind of, because the first one's to Mara, and it's really kind of her laying out her plans in insofar as Eris ever lays out plans. She doesn't really make it clear, but she kind of is like, this is, we must do what we must do to find this. And as far, because this was the one, no, not this one, not this entry, wasn't the, oh no, which one was it? Was it regarding the pyramid that came out right after the creepy cutscene?
Yes.
Because I know that one refers to it, but I can't remember if it came out like immediately following it or if it was like. But anyways, the only time frame that we do have was the correlation with that cutscene during Shadowkeep, which is when she walks up to the statue and has the creepy "I know what I'm doing" smile, which everyone loved it. I didn't think anyone freaked out about that at all. I think everyone
what
stayed.
The creepy cutscene? What are you fucking talking about?
Everyone was super calm. No one overreacted about it. There weren't theories thrown about.
Remember when Mylan posted a video of Eris was evil?
I mean, god damn. If ever Morla has played a character that wasn't slightly evil, I don't like. I could see her playing Eris as evil. I just see it. Morla could play evil so easily. Not to say that the writers would make her evil specifically because Morla could play evil, but
yeah, she could pull it off.
Oh god, yeah. Yes, she could. I've tried to emulate her voice patterns for Eris.
You remember this?
Oh my god, it's dang near impossible. The woman has such a weird, like she does it in such a way that the voice drips into a lower timbre, not only just like an actual throughout, but she doesn't end the sentences the same way as normal speakers do. And it's fucking frustrating, and I'm cursing, and I'm sorry. I may have had whiskey.
That's okay.
But anyway. So, okay, we have how many entries in this book? There are a lot of entries in this book.
14?
Yeah. Okay. I have, like, just the quickest rundown of, like, the not only cliff notes of it, but things that I think are slightly important for each of the cards.
Let's do it.
Regarding the Great Disaster. This is a report to the Queen where Eris reveals information about the pyramid opening a box in my mind long thought locked. She remembers the Battle of the Moon and Crota Fire Team attempt. So the idea of Eris has locked away these thoughts for years and years and years, but it has been reopened thanks to this pyramid. In regarding nightmares, it is a report to Ikora about the nature of the nightmares. She postulates that the pyramid is trying to distract. I cannot shake the feeling that we are being toyed with, that these nightmares are a hindrance to our goal. We must not lose sight of what they are guarding. Perhaps they wish to make us question ourselves and our will to fight, to overcome. So here, second card, still pretty resolute in what's going on. Everything sounds good. Everything sounds like it should be. Regarding Eris's fire team, a report to the Queen. Vel Tarlo has joined Sai Moda in Eris's torment. Beyond that, there is a terrible pain has resurfaced from a scar that I assumed had healed. Now something is scratching and clawing its way out. That, I feel, is the beginning of the cracking of the facade that Eris puts on. You really start to see things come apart in this card in particular. I'm sure in the advanced episode we're going to have more on that in particular, because that one screams psychological possible.
Mhm.
Well, not warfare, but also the idea of reminding somebody of something in particular. Like scent memory is such a strong thing, but there's also triggers for painful memories can trigger not only the painful memory itself, but pain in that limb. You have what is it called? The ghost limb effect for those who have gone through amputations. All right. Phantom limb. My wife from the other room provided the phantom limb.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Julie. Regarding Omnigul and Will of Crota, it's a report to the Queen. Eris relays that Omnigul is now part of the nightmare on the moon. She reflects that I am aware that these nightmares are not truly what they represent, but the mind can be fooled, even momentarily. In those moments lies all the destructive power of the darkness hopes to exploit. I fight back, but the nightmares grow stronger. So Eris is basically starting to postulate, is this how the darkness is going to fight in this one? Regarding the Hidden Swarm, next card, a letter to the Queen. The Hidden Swarm is disorganized and Eris is fearful for the force they could muster if one would rise up to lead them. For all the Hive's efforts, they fortunately do not seem to have succeeded in penetrating the pyramid's walls. I think this one in particular goes with what we were talking about, what we were going to talk about last week with the, is it Interrogation of the Damned?
Yeah, Inquisition.
Inquisition, that's what it is. That one is kind of in tandem with that one. Regarding the spread of
the release of the additional Apocrypha to it.
Yeah. Yes. Regarding the spread of nightmares, it's a letter to Ikora about how the nightmares are becoming more prevalent. The thing I've noticed between Eris's letters to the Queen versus Eris's letters to Ikora, the Queen's letters are more detailed and seem to be more personalized, versus the letters to Ikora, which are more of a professional, I am reporting in because I am in hidden and this is what you want me to do kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it also stems from the fact that the Queen historically has treated Eris as if she, I think, what was that Eris said? She treated her as if she wasn't broken.
I believe the quote was that the Queen sees me as a hunter, not a liability.
Right. Yeah. So there's that.
That was the lore tech for Unfinal Shapes.
Right.
That was his ship in season 4.
Yep. All right. So, moving on. Regarding Fogoth the Untamed, it's a letter to the Queen. Eris commiserates about the beast Fogoth, which I found really interesting, saying that she feels the same. Though duty is my oath and privilege, she cannot help but feel trapped by the endless cycle of the fight, which is interesting to see her starting to empathize more with the quote-unquote enemy at this point.
Well, this is also the first one with an enemy listed.
Correct.
Other than Hidden Swarm.
Correct. Rather than the massive groups of things. Regarding Taniks, the Scarred, and these are all in reference to nightmares, by the way. Like, Fogoth is one of the nightmares, Taniks is one of the nightmares, so is Skolas and Gaul and Zydron that we're going to see coming up. And Omnigul. Taniks the Scarred, a letter to the Queen. Was I truly trapped there, or was I keeping myself there? Was it a self-imposed exile for the disastrous attempt at assassinating Crota? This card in particular calls out some self-doubt. And there are some mentions of like how Taniks worked within the D1 storyline, but I'm focusing more on how Eris is relating herself to Taniks in this particular card. In the Skolas card, it's also a letter to the Queen. She compares herself to the fallen in general, saying, "We too shall adapt and become ruthless in hope of staving off the darkness." And just kind of calling out how the fallen have become just these completely adaptations of what they formerly were. They completely try to fight off what's coming based off of assimilating things that they find. They are these tinkerers. They are the great tinkerers. When it comes to Gaul, another character that Eris may not have ever had direct contact with, I don't remember if she had any contact with Tanix or Skolas either.
She wouldn't have
Not
had,
really.
well, contact, probably not, but she would have heard of them. Especially Tanix. Tanix was,
And Skolas.
yeah, and I mean, Skolas she
Right.
knows because,
Back
but
in
I mean,
D1.
yeah, because she mentions that she has knowledge of all of these figures. Because she mentions in the Gaul card how she felt when the Guardian put Gaul down, basically because of his, I think, what was it, his hubris, and his pride in thinking that he would be chosen by the light. But then I love how she turns that into, but are we any different type thing?
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, I loved it.
Self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
The regarding Gaul entry is another letter to the Queen. She often wonders whether I was chosen or whether I made a choice in my journey throughout this life. Did fate make me or did I make my own fate? Just kind of calling out the idea of, am I destined for this? Is this something I'm just completely stuck doing? Or is there any choice in what I've got going on? So this is kind of another, what I would call another cry out to figuring out what's going, like, why is she the one here? She's dealing with all these nightmares at this point. Regarding Zydron, Gate Lord, it's another letter to the Queen. Eris empathizes with the Gate Lords. It's what drives me in our crusade against the darkness and allows me to persevere even when I feel pushed past my limits, much as I do now. I will not lie to you, my queen. The very fabric of my mind feels twisted and frayed, which I found really interesting as far as the comparison between the Gate Lord and her, in so much that she feels like the Gate Lords may experience something similar, even though the Gate Lords are part of the hive mind aspect of things within the Vex. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's human to project
Personification.
emotions. And I think the point that I took away from that was, insofar as you can understand and sympathize with the Gate Lords, the way I read it was, regardless of what the Gate Lord wants, the Gate Lord has to do this function. Now, flip it, and it's like, well, the Gate Lord, if our understanding of the Vex is correct, the Gate Lord wants what it's doing. Like that's the weird thing of a hive mind, is like humans can't fathom really what that means. It's like, but we try, and and I love how Eris is presenting like this, like, well, what if it's not really what it wants? It's like, well, you're anthropomorphizing a little bit there, like, but
Right.
I see where you're going.
I do find that these last 3 cards are probably my favorite of this book, because these last 3 cards are where we really, I think, get a little bit more insight as to the disturbance of what's going on. First of the 3 is regarding the Fanatic. It's a letter to the Queen, and Eris, at this point, she hasn't really mentioned this, but this question that she brings up in this book, or in this card in particular, really kind of shines a light on her feelings for the whole thing. What is the pyramid implying? Is this to be my legacy too? Am I fated to fail, a pawn to the whims of the darkness? If that is what the nightmares of Fikril represent, what choice am I left with? I have already been stripped of my light. It would be easy for the darkness to take me if I let it. Do I dare? So this card, in my mind, kicks off these last 2 in so much as she feels like each of these entries or each of these nightmares are a message in particular from the darkness or from the pyramid to her or to whoever is listening at this point. And it's getting in her head. You really see it start to get to her a little bit. Regarding Crota, one of the most feared aspects in her own history, second to last card. It's a letter to the Queen. The darkness will win. I can sense it already. I swore I would go on. I can no longer swear this. Always failing. Relieve me. That card in particular is the last card that actually makes it to the queen
Well,
in this book.
No,
that
the
no,
regarding the pyramid has one that makes it.
yeah,
It has a portion of it, but not the first part. The
right.
first part doesn't
She
actually
wrote a
is undelivered.
correct. She basically started a note and then delete and rewrote it and then sent that. But she did send something to Mara. She sent something to Mara and Ikora in the last one.
Right. And she's the opening of that one in regarding the pyramid. It's, I think, more revealing than the second half, or the second 2/3, I should say. The undelivered aspect says, I am at a loss. Never before have I felt so hopeless, so adrift, so tempted. Forgive me for my words, but I understood the allure of the darkness. It is quite powerful sensation to feel so free of care. My fractured mind thrills at the prospect of recklessly abandoning hope. I cannot say I didn't want it to take me. I was weak. I see this now. And later in the card, she has the explanation to Mara about how we've been manipulated, where we've been where the darkness wants it. It's orchestrated its plan magnificently. And then the letter to Ikora is a little less clear, I think, in some respects. She does give Ikora a little bit of, I would say, props, I guess, in so much as you have remained steadfast and supportive of me where others lacked faith, which is kind of a nice little tidbit, even though Eris also doesn't feel as caring for Ikora pretty obviously throughout this entire book as she does for Mara. But she has a more, I think, hopeful letter to Ikora than she does to Mara at the end of this. What do you guys think?
Neo, do you want to jump in?
I don't. I read it in the way that Eris doesn't want Ikora to know how she's feeling.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She's like, thank you for the support, means a lot, but it's a hollow saying. It's like saying I'm fine.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. But she does also say that in that respect, this is how we will win. Despair not. Our purpose is good and true. I will not be weighted down by the dark, in the dark by my past, my mistakes, or my trauma. Instead, I will use them and they will lift me onto the light. Even though in her mention to Mara, she obviously feels like there is less hopefulness there. She knows that it is very easily to trip up and follow the dark. But I don't know. What do you guys think? There are some interesting aspects throughout this book that are mostly just kind of like, not necessarily tidbits, but insights into Eris's psyche for the time. Blue?
I think the ending with Ikora, there was another writer, and I'll try to find this guy because he did a really good job of talking about this aspect between her and Ikora, insofar as if you look at the relationship between Ikora and Eris, you really see that Ikora is really kind of like a surface acquaintance friend to Eris, and she really is kind of the only one that Eris has within the Vanguard. Within
absolutely.
Guardian rank especially. But Ikora is like that Ikora is like that stereotypical person who is dealing with someone who is grieving or who is in the middle of a depression or a depressed state, who is out of their depth. They don't have any idea how to deal with it. And so Ikora, No. Ikora is the friend who is dealing with Eris, who is in grief. And Ikora's response to and this guy does a really good job of kind of presenting the whole thing from Ikora's perspective. But like what Ikora does when Eris is going through all this is she basically is like Eris does the very stereotypical "leave me alone" Like, just leave me alone. And Ikora,
Right.
you know, for those who have experienced either a depressed state or a state of grief, that's a very natural thing to do when you're in that state. You push people away. Most people, and that's kind of, Neo, I like what you said there, is like she doesn't want Ikora to know how she's actually feeling. She's just saying, yeah, I'm fine. And Ikora is one of those characters who's like, you can tell, like, especially within the cutscenes, that like she knows she's not fine, but she doesn't know what to do. And it was interesting to me because this guy pointed out a really, really interesting thing that I actually missed was when Eris and Ikora first have this conversation before the ghosts start haunting her. It was, I think, it were only Sai and maybe Vel was with her that was just hanging around. Ikora kind of is like, "Are you okay?" And Eris is like, "Yeah, we have work to do." And she's talking to our guardian.
Yeah.
And Ikora's response is basically to send frames to guard an area that Eris has already secured. So she's basically putting robots with guns in it to protect, air quote, protect Eris. But the guy that wrote this, and gosh, I feel so bad. I need to find this article. But the guy who wrote it basically was pointing out, so Ikora sent guns to deal with psychological and actual supernatural hauntings. Like, what's a gun gonna do to a ghost? Like, it's not. And it was just, it was this way of kind of portraying Ikora as a character, or that person, a friend who does care but just has no idea how to connect with them.
Oh yeah, but I think that's accurate for any of the Vanguard in general. I don't think any of the Vanguard know how to deal with anything psychological at this point.
I think they're still reeling from the loss of Cade.
Yes, I would agree. But I mean, within regards to Eris's grieving and Ikora, I think that's the projection, or the presentation, I guess, that I really actually, as soon as I read that, I was like, you know what? Like, all these little pieces that have kind of been floating there seemed to kind of connect finally, and that made a lot of sense to me, because I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I kind of feel, and I couldn't put it into words. Was that Ikora wants to help, but she just has no clue how to. And so she's like, okay, here's some backup. And Eris is basically being polite and being like, okay, whatever. Yeah, thank you. She doesn't need the frames. Like, the things that are hunting Eris and haunting Eris are not physical. They're psychological. They are literally haunting her.
Well, in that same cutscene you were talking about, doesn't also, like, when after Eris is like, come on, we have work to do, to our guardian, and then Ikora turns to us.
Yeah, and she tasks she tasks us with helping her, right? Yeah, it to me, it was like, I was reading that and I was like, that is a really, and the guy's the ultimate point of the article was like, for a first person shooter, this is kind of an interesting twist, because you don't normally see something like this in a run and gun game,
right,
where things are like, you fix it by shooting it. Like with Eris, you fix it by actually purifying these various essences, and we kind of were talking about the memory quest at the beginning of the episode, where you kind of bring, like, I think, what is it, with Sai, you bring her the necklace. With Vel, you bring her
it's the mark.
It's the mark. I'm not sure what you bring on the other, but I mean, like, you bring her items that are based. Oh, okay, cool. And we don't read it, of course. That would be really upsetting.
Ghost has read it.
Oh gosh, I'm so upset now. But they're touch points. They're touch points of, like, the highlights of a person's life, which is how you process grief. Is you don't necessarily forget it, which is what Eris has been trying to do when she talks about the box that she buried. What was it? Reopened a box in my mind, long thought locked. Its contents frightening and heartbreaking. A lot of people compartmentalize, and they try to bury the pain and anxiety and stress that grief causes, and really that's not the way you address it. You have to face it, and you have to come to terms with the fact that whoever it is or whatever it is gone, and that's just, that's part of existence. Is things move on, things change, things fade, however you want to say that. And so that's really kind of where I find a lot of enjoyment in talking about like the Shadowkeep campaign, is because it's so much one of the most beautiful entries is Eris. Oh god, it's the jump ship from Eris, where she's talking about grief, and she's talking about like, it's hell, but we have to keep going. It's just, I don't know. I really appreciate the lore entries and the lore items that were released within the Shadowkeep because of the psychological points to it. The entire thing with the nightmares can also be viewed as a dream analysis. Like the whole thing with the entire armor set that gives us bonus damage and bonus protection against nightmares is called the Dream Bane armor. Like, I don't know how much more on the nose you can get with that. Because the more items from the Dream Bane armor set that you wear, the more protection you have against nightmares. It's just right there.
It's a dream catcher in some ways.
Right. And then like, the various aspects of the weapons are actually taken from components that we take from those dreams and purify. And if you start looking at like all the essences that you have, I think there's like 14 essences. The essences that are, and we'll get into this definitely with the advanced episode, but the essences that we have for the hunts, are very big, like very big negative emotions like rage, fear. What is it? Rage, fear, isolation, pride, servitude, insanity, anguish, and despair. But then also we have obscurity, envy, brutality, failure, tranquility, and jealousy. And all of these...
Tranquility is always the weird one to me.
Right. And I do kind of have a thought on that one, because if you take it to an extreme, right? If you take pride,
Sloth?
Well, it's not even that. Like tranquility, so the opposite of tranquility is like concern or anxiety, right? It's two extremes. You don't want to be complacent, but you don't want to be like, panic attacks. If you're extremely tranquil, you're doing nothing. So yes, in a way it would be sloth-like. It'd be, I wouldn't say it's laziness. Sloth would be, the thing. You're detached. You don't have a care because you're just, it's just whatever. Whereas if you're not tranquil, if you have concern, that's kind of where I kind of was taking that particular one. I will admit that tranquility is the one that it kind of throws a wrench in all of it, because I'm like, really? That's the word choice we're going to go with on negative essences. Everything else is pretty obvious, right? Like pride is hubris, but and when you purify it, when you take that essence and you take it through purification, the opposite of pride is humility or modesty. And it's through the projection or through the purification or the healing of these essences that we get more powerful gear. We get the additional armor and weapons that then go on to allow us to confront the next nightmare. And it's just like this huge kind of, again, it's just, to me, it's so much on the nose of a dream analysis and of a healing of these negative fears and emotions within Eris. And that's why I kind of asked the question, whose nightmares are we actually dealing with here? Sure, they take on personifications of things that we recognize, and I'm not arguing that, like with Fogoth and with Gaul and Zydron, definitely.
Fanatic or...
Right. But when you read the entries, and I really encourage people, if you haven't already read them, go back and read them, because in every single one that mentions us, but actually in every single one, Eris calls out her empathizing with that particular emotion. With Tanyx, she talks about isolation. With Gaul, she talks about wrath and rage and pride. Skolas, she talks about the pride and the hubris. And, you know, and every time she brings it back into that, what you kind of were mentioning, Green, that self-analysis, but not just self-analysis. She's actually talking about Guardians in general too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really cool dive into what I really like about this whole story is like, what happens? What happens if we take it too far? Will we become the fallen? Is that our future? You know, what happens if, you know, who chose us to come back? Was it us or was it destined? You know, these questions that are very Osirian, if you will.
These questions that are very much the exact same questions I put at the frickin' panel at Guardian Con last year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
A dive into our own nightmares.
Right. Well, and I mean, it's I would say it's a existential crisis on a general level. And, you know, and kind of like I got looking at the nightmare hunts, you know, and the major nightmare hunts, especially, there's 8 of them. And it's kind of, it made me think of like the Buddhist, the 8-step, or the 8, what is it? The path. Eightfold path. Right. It's not a 1-to-1 connection, because the Eightfold Path is much more about the separation of self from your awareness and all that. But it's also, you know, it's about this form of transcendence, and it's a form of purification of these negative thoughts, really, because you're going through, and as you're going through each of these things, you're combating and recovering the essences of these negative thoughts to take back to the lectern of enchantment to purify. And that's where you get really kind of this kind of really cool looking, I don't want to say it's an analogy, but like this really cool like psychological model of taking these negative emotions, overcoming the challenge, you know, hunting down these essences, finding the heart of them and bringing them back and then purifying them. And from that process, you become stronger. I thought that was really a cool thing. But I will completely keep talking about this, so I'm going to just stop talking at this point.
Well, I think, I mean, as far as like an introduction of this book, there's not a ton of major details. It's a lot more analysis than there are details in some respects of analysis of the psychological aspects like you're talking about, which I would rather, if we could, push that into the advanced episode.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And let you and Neo take that one, because it looks like you both have some really good, interesting aspects to tie into each of these cards in there in particular. And so I would be perfectly happy with us wrapping up the intro session for now and moving into the advanced session and letting you guys go to town on that.
I'm game with that.
What about you, Neo?
You good with that, Neo?
Good.
All right.
Yeah, I just got something.
Cool. All right, perfect. Do you have any shout outs for the intro session for us this week, Neo?
I want to shout out to you guys for having me on.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We are going to hear so much more from you this next episode. I see your notes and I am excited. And I pull up my chair, my green chair, to the lectern of Neo Mad Dog and see what you have to say for the next episode. So shout out to you for not only joining us in this episode, but also being game to do this topic, because I know it's not the easiest topic to dive into.
Yeah, I spent last Friday basically just reading the entire book and then like researching like okay, who are these people? How does this relate to everything? And just going on and on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Like when I pitched it to you, you were a little leery, and I knew that going in, but I'm glad that you stepped up for it, because it's not an easy book to dive into, because it's not a clear-cut book. So good on you for that. Blue, any shout outs for you?
No, I kind of, just to echo what we kind of talked about at the beginning of the episode, we really just want to offer you guys who are listening, who have stuck with it this far, a place to feel, safe, whether that is coming into the Discord to chat about the current events, coming into the Discord to chat about games to avoid the current events. I can completely understand both sides of those approaches. Given everything that's going on out in the world, just keep on trucking, guys. Like, I know it's hard, and I know it's tedious in some cases, and I know it's scary for really everyone. But we will get through it together. Like, that's all I can. That's what I have to believe in. So.
Cool.
All right. Oh, let me get this stopped.
Okay. I'm gonna go grab some more coffee. I'll be right back.
Yep, definitely.
I'm gonna go grab a glass of water.
Perfect. Oh, I forgot. Let me close out real quick. Man, I'm silly. I let all the people walk away. Thank you for your time, and until next time, remember, with wisdom we conquer. Stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring. Okay. Now I can close down. Eject. Oh, man. Okay. Let's get...
Okay, I am back.
I have also returned.
Yay. I am on Mercury, and I don't know if this is actually the case, but I feel like if you are lucky, you get into a rotation of the public event showing up sooner than every 17 minutes. And then it takes the 17-minute break, and then it comes back like every few minutes.
I wish.
Yeah. I swear, that is actually the hardest part right now of trials, is just being so down level from everybody.
Oh, the light level.
Mm-hmm. They shut off the lantern, but it's still a pain in the butt right now.
I don't know what that means.
They shut off the artifact.
Oh.
It's actually a dagger. Kajali.
Oh, right. It's not the lantern anymore. That's right.
That's probably why I was confused. It's like,
Whatever.
I don't know what lantern.
My mind initially went to the Lectern of Enchantment, but
Right,
like,
yeah, that's what I was like.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a lantern in the middle of the trials? That doesn't make any sense.
We have to go light the lantern.
Did you?
And then Poseidon will give us a torch that we have to carry across the map, and we have to slam it into a different area.
Why
so
is
then
it
Hera
Poseidon
can
that
be happy.
gives it?
Do you mean Osiris? Are you mixing up your character?
I'm just adding mythology, and it's fine.
Did you see Jake's webcomic about the lantern at the start of the trials?
No.
He's like, anyone else just expecting the lantern to fall out of the sky? Like, you know how you go up and walk up and you like let it go and it floats over? He's like, I was totally expecting that just to fall.
That would be amazing.
It's just like you let go of it and it just drops and he's like, huh. Don't
No,
know what I was
imagine
expecting.
my guardian trying to like catch it, like juggling in his hands. Trying to catch it.
It would have been like,
"Shit."
it's like the ghost that falls in the.
Oh, God.
That
The
thing's-
freaking drifter
that-
daydreams or whatever.
That fucking
Do you remember the
breaks me
guy
up.
who
yes,
who shot
punched
it?
it?
And
yeah.
no, the one who
Oh yeah,
shot,
he shot
like,
it, and he's like, "Oh no!"
Oh my God. He thought he broke it. It was amazing. Oh, nice, Doom. I have not been grinding any of my weekly stuff. I've been like,
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not a
I'm at-
low light level.
I think I'm at like 980 at the moment.
Let's see here. My base level. I am at 983
Nice. I think I'm at like
at gear level.
980, 982. I just got something that bumped me up a little bit.
My hunter's at like 997 base.
Nice.
Pull up Dim real quick.
I'm on my spring break from school, and so I'm able to just grind out Destiny.
Nice. That's awesome. I wish.
983 is what I can technically get to if I just hodgepodge everything together.
My wife gets really mad if I just go balls to the walls on it, so I am.
I know how that feels.
So I am taking not my time, but I am doing what I can when I can. Let's see. 381. Hey, Doom got Reckoner. Good for you,
Nice.
Doom.
That's awesome. I'm not getting Reckoner anytime soon.
Yeah, me neither.
Is that the Gambit one?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the one where you do the
You play way too much.
well, you do the Trials of the Nine thing.
Oh, Reckoning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that, yeah.
And you have to
Okay.
get all the Gambit sets and everything.
And then you
Yeah.
play a lot of Gambit Prime.
Yeah. Which rip Gambit Prime. Just rip it. Just it's so bad right now. Like we went
Is
into
it?
Gambit the other day and like I'm not a terrible Gambit player, but Jesus fucking Christ, is it impossible to keep up with people who play it all the time because it's that there's such a small player pool that
Mhm.
everybody is just a fucking god who's in there.
Oh, so it's just like you either
It's sweaties.
pub stomp or
Yeah.
I'm never lucky enough to get good invaders on my team. Every time I play Gambit, I'm playing against someone who's really good at invading.
I'm better at Sentinel. Like
Sentinel?
getting rid of invaders is my specialty personally. But
I'm a Reaper / Collector kind of person. I
yeah,
just like killing the trash out.
nice. Risk Runner.
Oh yeah, Risk Runner and Verity's Brow is the go-to for me.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
That was my favorite for Reaper.
Wicked was always our Reaper and Cole was always our Collector. So I always got stuck with Sentinel because we always had somebody else doing the invading. So it was not my it was not my first choice. I wanted to do other things, but I'm okay with what I ended up having to do. Reaper for Doom. Reaper's a fun one.
all right, you guys good to go?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
All right. Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on March 20th, 2020, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat, as we continue our discussion over the lore book Letters from Eris. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the advanced session of the week's exploration. Congratulations to those who signed up for a deeper dive. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is Green Eyed Music Lover trying to remember how to snipe in anything at this moment, because I'm bad at this. Bows? Give me a bow and I'm fine, but make me snipe, which is what Trials is right now. And I turn into, oh my god, it's so bad. I'm not too bad at, like, hip firing things. Like, I have a sidearm that I can hip fire like nobody's business, but I can't do sniping. I just am not a good sniper. It's just not a thing.
Green, no sniping. Last but definitely not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend Neo Mad Dog. Neo, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm peachy keen right now.
Perfect. Well, since you're doing so well, let's just cut the chatter and dive into the discussion. So, where do we want to start on this particular one?
Well, you guys have some notes for the first one, which is always good. So we could start at the beginning.
It's a dangerous place to start.
Very, very good place to start. If I could quote Julie Andrews.
Neo, what do you got for us on the first one?
So the first page in Letters from Eris is regarding the Great Disaster, in which Eris recounts to Mara the events of the Great Disaster, and also confirming Mara's suspicion that there was a pyramid in the moon. And we knew that Mara knew about the pyramids all the way back in like Forsaken week 6 or so. It was one of the Queen's Court where we see a hologram of the pyramids, and you can still see it there if you were to go in.
Mm-hmm.
And so we also get this was also foreshadowed back in Season of the Drifter with the book Stolen Intelligence. There was an unidentifiable fragment that a member of the Hidden, that we believe was Fenchurch Everest, who he discovered a fragment on the moon by a weird-looking thrall. And after touching it against recommendation, he had a hallucination that featured Eris and an unknown VIP character that we've yet to know. We don't know who that is yet. And Eris says the word pathetic in Russian.
Which is interesting considering the, you want to go back to, was it the unveiling?
It was Truth to Power.
Truth to Power, that's what it is.
Where fake Eris says that she, during the Golden Age, she was she grew up in St. Petersburg, Russia. But Stolen Intelligence also says that it is likely that Eris was actually born in the city.
But we don't, that's two different books. Now, granted, that is things that are possibly trying to lie to us, but that's two different things. Mentioning Eris in Russia as a possible Russian
only Morla had a Russian accent.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
So Eris also mentions the Great Disaster, which, as most people know, was a failed attempt to reclaim the moon by the Vanguard. After the discovery of the Hive on the moon by Reza Lazir, Hive invaded Earth at Rusted Lands, which is a PvP map. A single Guardian survived that encounter and recounted it. There was a battle at Burning Lake, though we don't know where that is. And then the Vanguard ordered a full invasion on the moon to stop the Hive against the advice of Lord Shex, who understood that the Hive cleavers have light-draining properties. The invasion failed, and thousands of Guardians were killed by the Hive, hence the name Great Disaster, majority of which were killed by Crota, son of Oryx, including Waning, who was the lover of Ariana 3.
Yes. Blue, do you have any notes on this one?
Trying to dive real quick. Not really. It's as far as like the actual in-game, like the actual entry piece, like I kind of mentioned in the introduction. is it's just basically an explanation of kind of her plans to Mara, of what they're doing on the moon, why it's kind of arguably quote unquote important in her mind. That was really my takeaway on this particular one. We kind of talked about the psychological compartmentalization that you saw with the conversation that we had in the previous episode. So that was my notes, really.
Nice. That would move us on to the second one, in so much as regarding nightmares in particular, and Eris's dive into that. Blue or Neo? Who wants to go first on this one?
Neo has the big notes on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So this one's really short. Since this one isn't too terribly significant, it's just kind of another setup of what's to come. Eris notes that the nightmares are likely a form of psychological warfare the pyramid is using to distract Guardians. At least that's her main guess. Some of the nightmares are enemies we've killed in the past, like Gaul and Tanix. Others are phantoms of friends and loved ones, particularly Eris's fire team, and that brings us to like the patrol zone. Like the patrol beacons on the moon are actually specters, and then you can see them all over.
Yeah, that one's it's a pretty straightforward one, I think. Blue, any analysis on this one?
On this one, basically, this is when in game the ghosts begin to appear. So we have kind of a touch point as far as where this happens in game. So this would be the appearance of Sai Moda. This is actually, I believe, the only time that we actually get a ghost called out specifically. She does, I think, mention them a couple times elsewhere, but this is the only one that really gets called out as first appearing. And then, again, like we kind of talked about in the intro session, this is a note to Ikora. So this one is definitely more clinical, I would say, than the notes that we see to Mara.
The specters that follow Eris around they come in order, in a order, and they are listed at the time. Like you talk to Eris and you get a prompt that says it's Ariana or it's Toland or whoever, and you can tell by their silhouettes what class they are. But after that initial telling of you who this is, they're unlabeled.
Cool. All right, so sorry, Chad is arguing the merits of pathétique, which is French, versus pathetic, versus the Russian, which I am not going to even attempt to pronounce.
There's a lot of Cyrillic letters in it.
Yes. So regarding Eris's fire team, this one is going to be a little bit more interesting in so much as Eris is really, really diving into the trauma in this one. Neo, do you want to lead us off on this one? You have a pretty big breakdown of the trauma that she's going through.
So now we know that. So at this point, Eris is writing to the Queen about that she knows for a fact that these are all her fire team members and that they are coming one at a time. She mentions that like this is a terrible pain has resurfaced from a scar that I assumed had healed. And it's clear that she was very close with her team and is suffering from the grief of watching her friends die. I thought it might be fitting to summarize who each member was, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Ariana 3 was a warlock and the leader of the team. She was a member of the Praxic Order. Her lover Wei Ning was killed by Crota during the Great Disaster, which inspired her mission.
Miss Punchy Titan from the Shard of the Traveler mission. You get quotes from her in there.
Yes, and also the Fighting Lion tab mentions that she punched the mountain so hard it shook.
Also, Wei Ning is the one who made the wish of this would never end in the Great
Are
Ahamkara
you insane?
Hunt. She's a Titan through and through, I think, is the easy way to put it.
And also, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong on this. The symbol on the Ariana's vow on the like what the exotic perk is, that symbol is the Chinese characters for Wei Ning.
Oh, really? I had not looked that one up.
Like
Interesting. Okay.
not on the gun, but in the menu, like what the exotic perk is
Oh, I
called.
gotcha.
That symbol is
Oh,
the
on
the one
on the
the one on the
UI.
gun, I believe, is the castoid symbol or something.
Yeah, it was either that or I want to say it was either that or the Praxic, I think. I can't remember. I think, but
Well,
yeah, I think you're
I'm
right. I
pretty
think it
sure
was the
Becca has
Casoid.
that. I'm pretty sure the invective shotgun had that same symbol.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
So Ariana was then killed by Iriut after losing her light in the stills. Iriut was the death singer in the Crota's End raid. Saimoda was a hunter. She was considered very quiet unless roused to give a speech or a toast, in which she gave a toast that like they may not be the smartest or the bravest, but they sure are the dumbest fire team. She apparently loved to carve beads, and she taught Eris how to, and she was killed by Omnigul.
Yeah. Good old Omnicle. Okay, so Sai was also one of Eris's confidants in some respects in the Crota Fire team. Like Sai was closer to Eris. Obviously, Ariana was the closest because Ariana and Eris were the ones who helped put the team together, but Sai was also very close to her.
I think Eris and Ariana were technically also drinking buddies. There was mentioning of
That would not surprise me in the least
and
bit.
I believe it was the Ariana's vow lore tab. It is a scene of Ariana grieving Wei Ning in a bar, and Eris is with her, and Ariana yells at everybody to someone tell a joke or laugh or something like that. Anyway, so Veltarlo is the only Titan of the group. He was a former member of the Pilgrim Guard. His mark was chain link, and every link in that chain was someone he had saved. And there was apparently one for Eris. He was surprisingly soft-spoken, given a Titan. It is believed he was the original owner of the Peregrine Greaves. I'm not going to yell it. Or at least inspired their creation.
Peregrine Greaves. We need Rick for that.
Then, at least in the lore tab for Peregrine Greaves, he mentioned he jumped off a cliff.
He did jump off a cliff. You would not believe what I just did.
He wrote that to, at the time, Vanguard Commander Saint 14. He was actually the first to die of the team at the Temple of Crota. He was swarmed by Thrall and then killed by Alakul, the Dark Blade, who he later killed in the Sunless Cell Strike and during the Taken King.
Okay, Alakul. So then you get Omar.
Yes, Omar Aga is another hunter. Joined only because Eris was involved. I believe it was likely due to her actions during the Great Ahamkara hunt. He was killed by the Heart of Crota, and his soul now resides in the machine gun, or in some form.
Well, yeah.
A lot of people think
supposedly.
Maybe.
I like to think he's
ish. He's an angry, very, very needs a Snickers bug inside of a machine.
I like to think it's a rhinoceros beetle or something like that.
Like, he is not a happy character. Like, he is all rage.
I still hold to my one random theory about that.
I don't remember.
It's not him. It's basically something it's equivalent of an AI that's been programmed to think it's him.
Gotcha. Okay, so then we move into everybody's favorite warlock to hate, Toland.
Yes, so Toland the Shattered was the second warlock. He was a hive obsessed individual who was exiled from the city. He was recruited by Eris and Ariana for his knowledge, but he didn't share everything he knew. He allowed all other members to die in order to get access to the Death Singer and let his soul live on in the Ascendant Plane in the Sea of Screams. He has been a glowy ball ever since, first appearing to our guardian on Phobos during the Taken War, and even helping out during the King's Fall and Dreaming City Curse. And he was very upset that we killed Oryx and didn't do anything beyond that.
Accurate. All right, Blue, your notes on this one.
So I included on the breakout of the various characters on the mind map, which will be in the show notes this week. Toland's actually got some quotes about each one of these characters from the patrol that we see in Mars. For example, for Ariana, he says, though many souls were silenced at the great disaster, their memories lingered. A fire was born in the heart of Praxic Warlock Ariana 3. She fought the day of our disaster, lost one of her closest friends, and retreated alongside the survivors. But her light remained, and she vowed vengeance upon Crota. For Sai, actually, he has a really interesting one. He says, Sai descended into these depths with an unequaled compassion for those around her. That's the type of thing that gets you killed, if you ask me. Sai desired the respect of her fire team. She died not realizing she had it all along. Let's see. Omar, we're pretty sure was a hunter, and yeah, I believe the xenophage connection. Toland's quote on Omar was, Omar Aga entered these depths with his own unique faults, disbelief and distrust, but beneath it all was his truth, fear. The hive fed off this very fear. Poor Eris had to watch as his light was stripped from his soul and his essence used to strengthen the hive. And then his very, very high high feelings towards Vel Tarlo. Toland says, Vel Tarlo was the first of us to fall in the dark below, assaulted by both his pride and the wizard Varrock. I warned Vel of the dangers posed by the hive. Being headstrong, I said, was not going to keep him alive. Overwhelmed and smothered by Thrall, his light was snuffed out. If only he'd listened. What a waste. And then one of my favorite quotes from him, actually, is in regards to Eris. And Toland says, if you'd asked me long ago what I thought of Eris Morn, you'd have learned that kindness does not flow through my veins. But I have since gained a reverence for Eris. I thought her broken, foolish, but I was the fool. Eris was the best of us all, and still is. So yeah, and all those are listed alongside with all the other quotes from Toland on the Lore Network's website. But you know, I really think that and then also this is when Vel Tarlo appears. So there's also that happens in game. In, you know, this is really just, as Neo has done a great job kind of pointing out, this is when Eris kind of recalls details about her former fire team to Mara. And that's my... I don't really have anything else to add to the notes already.
One of the things I find interesting is Toland's conflicting persona.
Mm-hmm.
At least I feel like he's this... It's hard to put into words, but he's trying to exude this personality of being aloof and away from everything, and he doesn't care. He's only in it for the knowledge. He's only in it for himself. But he does secretly harbor these feelings for other people that he either desires, or is or maybe regretful of, that he does have kind of feelings for his fight.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other thing too is, like, he calls out Eris's, like, he does admit that he looked down on them all, you know, from the very beginning, and that was kind of the pride or hubris. And, you know, obviously he's transformed into a little bouncy ball, but, you know, I do think that his respect for Eris has been because, you know, he helped her survive. Well, he showed her how to survive, and she actually did what he showed her, which I think was where a lot of that respect I kind of take is coming from, is because Eris showed her tenacity and showed her willingness to do anything to survive, and that was something that I think Toland's character, from what we can see so far, is is that makes him respect you, is like someone who's willing to walk the walk, not just, talk the talk. Basically, he was like, this is what you have to do to survive down here in the dark where there is no light. And Eris was pretty much, okay, let's do it. It's like she didn't, I don't think the sense was that she didn't really have time to think about it. She was just kind of in survival mode. So yeah, I do like that as we get more and more from Toland, it does seem to add more complexity to the character, who was not fun at parties.
I don't think he's still fun at parties. Still.
I mean, I agree.
Remember the first thing he says when you enter the dreaming, like, "Why are you here?
Why are you here? Are you an idiot?" Yeah. Toland's a bundle of fun.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see what Eris says about Omnigul. Because Eris does not have nice things to say about Omnigul.
Yeah.
So Omnigul, the Will of Crota, is the mother of most of Crota's spawn and a zealot for Crota in general. She was killed canonically twice by the Guardian in the Strike Will of Crota back in D1, and as she had undone her death during the Siva crisis. She's just a wizard with a very nasty voice. She's represented as Anguish during the Nightmare Hunts, perhaps due to Crota's weakened state during the Dark Below campaign. She's angry and upset that her master has failed, and she has to pick up the slack. Or it's the anguish I feel hearing her scream.
The anguish you feel. That's Morla as well. Eris Morn is the voice of Omnigul, as well as the Hive.
I'd rather listen to Eris Morn speak than Omnigul.
That's fair.
That's a fair response.
That's absolutely fair. Okay, so Blue. It's a note. You don't have too much more than that.
No,
Eris repels Cade with fondness.
Right, yeah. She says that she finds herself thinking of him more now that he's gone. And this is where she also says, I suppose I've grown closer to other Guardians in the Vanguard than I realized. And then she points out that if the Pyramid's dragging the Omnigul into the fray, it tells me one thing: we're getting closer. And this is where she also calls out, that, again, the mind tricks. She's fighting back, but the nightmares grow stronger. She's at this point still assuming that the worst is yet to come.
Okay, so Hidden Swarm is a pretty basic one. I kind of mentioned how they are from the books that we were going to do, Inquisition of the Damned. I'll let you go, Neo. You have kind of the things that I was going to talk about on theirs too, with the Hidden Swarm.
So the Hidden Swarm is basically the frontline military for the Hive on the Moon and Earth. Back in D1, they didn't really have power, like the recognizable names that we know aren't the leaders of the Hidden Swarm. The Hidden Swarm kind of have their relationship to other sects, like the House of Devils has with the Kings, where the Kings are really in control and the Devils are just hanging in there. So Hidden Swarm was just kind of there. Their highest leadership at the time was the Swarm Princes that we killed. They guarded the Sword of Crota, and we killed them pretty quickly. But they were overseen by the Spawn of Crota, especially by Omnigul and Sardon, the Fist of Crota. Their role has definitely been expanded on lately and are currently being led by Hashladun, Daughter of Crota. We also learned that the Swarm is resistant to the effects of the nightmares, at least as far as we know, and based off of Inquisition of the Damned, they may be trying to redefine Oryx as he had with his sisters. At least that's what they want, not other people.
This is true. Blue on yours?
For me, the thing that I noted here was really that the excuse me, this is the full out appearance of the swarm and Hash Ladoon. This is also when this kind of correlates with our descent into the catacombs, which is where we basically go in, and if I remember correctly, that's where we actually recover the cryptoglyph. Is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly?
I do not remember.
It was either right after we do the strike, or or is after we got the cryptoglyph.
Okay, yeah, because I know the catacombs was she explains that the catacombs are the weak spot where they do their own dark magic basically. And so she's going to basically send an attack, which translates into go get the Guardian to go down there and destroy everything. And then, yeah, Dino is pointing out, too, this is also where we kill one of Crota's... yes, one of Crota's daughters, Bashureth, yes. Which is interestingly, Gray, and I know you keep bringing up the Inquisition tie-in. Bashureth is actually... Make sure I'm remembering this correctly. Yeah, Bashureth is actually the one that Savathun whispered and convinced to kill the Coven within the Apocrypha that was revealed. So Bashureth was the one that came up with the idea to backstab the Coven during the chaos that Malkanth and her siblings created, and that was actually whispered to her by Savathun. So there's a connection for you.
Cool.
One more thing is that it is a weird thing. I believe Eris notes it, that it's awfully strange that the Hidden Sword would build such a massive tower sticking out of the lunar surface when usually they carve out a planet or a moon and build their structures underneath.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
As if they're almost like they're trying to get attention.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to get somebody's attention. Okay, so regarding the nightmares at that point in time appear in the Lost Sectors, and it's just an update to Ikora Ray, which is basically what you guys put on there. Fogoth. You guys want to talk about Fogoth? Not only the creation of Fogoth, but kind of things.
He got his name back.
He did get his name back.
I'm so happy.
Poor Fogoth.
It was so sad when they took his name away. Wasn't
that for the abomination heist or whatever?
It was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, because then even the regular strike, they didn't have it as Fogoth. It was just an abomination. I can't remember what it was, but it was like I went down one time and I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah, poor Fogoth. Just
really,
doesn't
actually
get any respect.
Yeah, Fogoth was kind of the opening of the door, I guess, for a lot of us, and seeing exactly what the Hive did to themselves and the Thrall in mutations and stuff like that.
For anybody who's new in D2, Fogoth is an old ogre from D1 that we did a strike over and over and over and over again, which you get to revisit that strike when we go to the moon. And in that strike, you see this giant ogre chained up. Well, you'll find out in the lore that used to be a tiny, tiny thrall.
I think most ogres were mutated and twisted.
Yeah. Yep, they are just fed anger and hatred and, I don't know, some sort of food that people dislike heavily. Vegemite.
Don't tell Mylan that.
Mylan doesn't like Vegemite. Are you kidding me? I know very few Australians who like Vegemite.
That's not what Men at Work told me.
Oh, now I have a picture of Fogoth with like a cane, and I just want to run in and say, "Okay, boomer." But
yes.
But now he's not a boomer. But anyways, yeah, no.
Blue, you mentioned that it was the opening to the door. That's also how we did that nightfall. We opened that door and just stayed there.
Well, now they put the shrieker in there. You can't stay in there anymore.
Well, you
not
can.
anymore,
You have to get a little inventive, but I think we proved that you can. You just have to be really quick about destroying that shrieker.
Oh yeah,
because that thing will just, oh man, that thing ripped you apart. The note that I had here with Fogoth was this is where we start seeing really Eris strongly empathizing with the nightmares. Like the specific nightmares. She says, she calls out with Fogoth. Fogoth is essence of fear. And she says that she says, I too know the pain of having to lead an existence you no longer want. The monster should have died and been forgotten. Instead, it had to live a life of indentured servitude. Sometimes I feel the same. Though duty is my oath and privilege, I can't help but feel trapped by the endless cycle of the fight. Will it all be worth it in the end? Will I ever know peace? That fear of will she ever actually get to the end of this whole thing? I think that you start seeing that more with, especially starting with this entry.
I mean, that's a question that a lot of Guardians are starting to ask.
Oh yeah. I mean,
not just Eris.
And I mean, not just Guardians either. That's a whole thing too of like the human existential crisis that a lot of people will go through is like what is the purpose? What's the point? Why are we here? To quote Red versus Blue.
One of life's greatest mysteries.
It's one of life's greatest mysteries. No, I mean, like, why are we here? This box cannon. Oh!
What was all that stuff about God?
No, what?
God,
still one of my...
I can quote that entire thing. So
I still love that.
I love that show.
So, but yeah, that was my big thing with this particular entry. Is this is where you start seeing Eris actually really empathizing, really putting herself in the shoes of the various figures that keep popping up. So that's all I got on that one.
Cool. Tannix the mercenary who causes all sorts of issues back in D1, who is not nearly as bad in D2. What about him?
All right. Tannix was a fallen mercenary that has no house, kneels before no banner, owes allegiance to no kell. He had been killed by K6 in the Vanguard there, making Andal Brask the new Hunter Vanguard. Tannix returned again somehow to kill Andal, and that made Cade the new Vanguard. Tannix was then killed by the Guardian during the Wolf Rebellion. He had been hired by the House of Wolves. And then again, when Tannix was brought back with Siva by the Devil Splicers. So Tannix's title, the Scarred, is a matter of debate. There's hypotheses that he might have been a former member of the House of Scar, or it could be referred to as growing list of enhancements. Tannix is represented as isolation in the Nightmare Hunt, which is fitting regarding his shifting loyalties. Eris specifically mentions that loyalty to the highest bidder is no loyalty at all.
Tannix is such a sad story to me.
I think he wants that.
He wants to be a sad story.
I think he doesn't. I feel like he just doesn't care anymore. Like, this is what he wants. He wants to be the ultimate killing machine. With a cool quote.
I mean, at this point, something to talk about just with all of these in general, all of these nightmares, is they are not actually the former enemies. They are, I want to say, figments of our imagination, but they can very well kill you. How would you describe it, Blue? Like, they are pulled from our own psyche and recreated in a much more powerful way, but at the same time, they're not their original selves.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's exactly how I would describe it. It is because, and one of the things that gets called out, especially with Tannix, is the presentation of Tannix is the original presentation of Taniks. It's not the Sivified presentation. I know
Right.
that was actually really pulled out.
Sivatanix was that. I played that strike recently. That model barely changed. It's a Siva cloud around Tanix, and
but I know that was kind of the thing. The thing is like, I think that again ties into the whole thing with it being, dream-esque nightmares. It's all the psychological ghost of our past and ghost of, the Guardian's past and everything. It's a hallucination, but as with dreams, your dreams, there's the old adage, if you die in your dream, you die in real life,
Right.
So.
It's the same thing within the freaking Infinite Forest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the Matrix.
Can kill you.
But at the same time, we are on our plane while this is all happening.
Correct. This is and see, that's the fun thing.
It is a group nightmare. It is a.
We refer to those things as tulpas, and they are very scary. The thing with hallucinations is that, just in the same capacity, the hallucination is actually explained to be a remnant of, the artifact, the anomaly itself. We saw that within Revelations. It's not just visual, it's also auditory and all that. So it's I would simplify it by calling it a hallucination, but it really is a projection of the psychological fear or psychological memories,
manifestation of our own memories.
Mm-hmm. Manifestation of ours, or the groups, the hive minds of humanity, if you will.
That's not really kind of how it's similar to how I saw it, but I always imagine like the nightmare, like there's not really a being, but there is something quote unquote physical there that which is what we shoot at. And like when you approach a nightmare, like during a nightmare hunt, like it's just like this red glowing spiky thing that's just kind of there, and when you approach it, then it gets formed. And I always imagine like that's like the pyramid is like saying like this is something that we as guardians and others, like this is something we don't like, and now it's been given form again.
Yeah, that's why I kind of referred to it as like a equivalent of like a tulpa. A tulpa is a concept that was, I think, 20th century from Tibet, but it's described as a concept in mysticism and the paranormal of a being or object which is created through spiritual or mental powers. So a lot of times, like what you'll do, there's an entire subreddit dedicated to tulpas, and it's amazing. It's just amazing to read them. But it's basically like the idea of the group focusing on this one concept, and like through the sheer will of that number of people, the tulpa is born. It's created.
Well, isn't that how major horrors are created in general? It starts with some one person, and then it completely...
Wait, you want to talk about Slender Man?
Oh, God bless it. We talked about it last week.
Urban myths are a really easy way to kind of wrap your head around it. There was actually an episode of Supernatural that dealt with the tulpa. And it's interesting because, like, especially in today's age with the internet being what it is, you see a lot more of this like conceptual group hallucination type stuff than you did prior to the internet, because the information didn't get shared, so you don't have as quickly these urban myths popping up. But yeah, no, tulpas are a very interesting tangent to go down.
Yeah, they are. Okay, so talking about the tulpas for a little bit. You want to skip over the tulpas and go back to a different nightmare of ours, Skolas?
I really wanted to point out real quick with Taniks. Taniks is the essence of isolation, and that is the exact self-examination that we see from Eris within this card as well. Was her kind of talking about the self-imposed exile, or the penance for her mistakes kind of concept. So I did find that interesting. The connection and the empathy that Eris has with Taniks is the essence that we collect from beating Taniks. But yes, with Skolas, Skolas is the essence of pride. Hubris.
Which is funny, because you would think that would be Gaul, but...
Well, Gaul is hubris as well, but it's like a wrathful pride. Skolas is hubris in like its pure, like he didn't.
He just thought he could do the Kell of Kells on his own without having any sort of... Yeah,
he called himself the Kell of Kells. Gaul was doing it out of like a sense of like not vengeance, but like of a prideful wrath. Skolas was doing this out of like, I am the best and I don't need that, because he basically, when he went to get the Vault of Glass, for example, he basically was just like, no, it's all about me, and it's that whole sense. But that being said, Eris also empathizes with his sense of his dedication to his people. She says that we too shall adapt and become ruthless in hopes of staving off the darkness. Death itself will have to claim me to end my campaign.
I do understand, in some respects, what these various, especially like the Fallen and Cabal, who are like standing up for their people in some respects, I understand where they're coming from. That is kind of the, I guess, my own darker side of this whole thing.
Well,
I have doubt. That is what it is.
Mm-hmm. And then like that's the whole thing. That's her whole thing, was his ambition. What was it? His ambition was nothing if not relentless. In certain regards, I almost respect his sense of duty to his people. He was ruthless in his quest to lead his followers to glory. But see, that's right there. That's the part that I kind of sense the pride. It wasn't survival. It wasn't, reclaiming it was all about glory. It was all about proving that he was the best, that they were the best. That was the prideful thing. Now, regardless of if that was actually what, and that's the thing that tying back into what we were just talking about with these not actually being the characters, regardless of if that was actually Skolas's intent, that is the message that his nightmare is being used to deliver to us. The same as with like Fogoth and all the others.
So, okay. I'm going to wait till the very, very end to postulate this tiny piece as far as like the reasoning, because Eris asked about the reasoning for all of this too. But let's go over.
You were talking
Mad
about
Dog
Gaul. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go for it.
You want to go over Gaul or Skolas, either one?
Well, Skolas was first, so I'll start with Skolas.
Mm-hmm.
So Skolas was the self-proclaimed Kell of Kells. During the Reef Wars, which was around the time of the Twilight Gap, Marasov had killed the former Kell of the House of Wolves as they were trying to cross the asteroid belt. After several years of infighting and against the Reef, Skolas became their new Kell. Due to his ruthlessness, he was betrayed by Barracks of House Judgment to the Reef and was imprisoned and later given to the Nine. The Nine set him free and gave him a new catch. Skolas inspired the Wolves, who were then led by Marasov, as Fallen tradition dictates, to rebel against the Queen and take back the Traveler. He proclaimed himself the new Kell of Kells, sought to recruit the other Fallen houses, He was defeated by the Guardians, sent back to the prison elders, and then was killed in the prison by the Guardians in a very, very tough mission. So Skolas is represented as pride, as we've talked about, and given his arrogance to claim the Kell of Kells, which was a prophecy by the fallen House of Rain. Anyway, so Skolas to me is a bit of an anti-hero. His people fell to ruin after the whirlwind, and while he was arrogant, he did want them to reclaim their former glory with bloodshed. In the end, he was only a pawn among the other major players of the system. The Wolf Rebellion improved relations with the Vanguard and the Vestian dynasty. Eris, Morn, and Osiris were able to convince Marisov to help fight against Oryx. Skolas then didn't really comprehend the politics above him, and I believe the lore book Dust has a lore page in which the Skolas is lamenting that, Marisov sees him as insignificant, and Skolas finally recognizes that he's just a pawn in other people's games.
Which is both sad, but also I'm grateful he recognizes it finally, because, dude, he's really been the pawn for such a long time in so many different plots.
Did you see his head? He has a really big head.
He's easy to. Yeah, he's just a narcissist who thinks he's in charge, but he's really not.
All I remember from him is so many laps. So many laps.
Yep.
For those who didn't have the joy of doing Prison of Elders, that was the defense, was, take another lap. Like, just run circles around that entire, what is it, the
it's the area strike? You go into in the strike now, yeah.
Yeah.
The Fallen.
The Warden.
Damn. Oh, God. No save points.
Nope.
Do you want to talk about...
I'm sorry. I only did it once.
No, Damo, if you ever want to talk about PTSD, go talk to Damo about Skolas. He's the one that strikes. Yeah, he was the one that we always had a joke. Skolas owed him rent because Damo basically he ran everybody. Like, I swear everybody I know that got through was because of Damo.
Dang.
Like, he ran. I don't think there was a time that when that was the current event, like when there was a day we'd log on and he wasn't in the process of running multiple loads of people through it.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
But let's talk about Gaul. Talking about rage and wrath.
Yeah. So Gaul was a albino runt, exiled from Cabal society when he was an infant. He was discovered by the disgraced consul of the former Praetorate, which had been overthrown by Emperor Callus. Under the consul, he became a successful gladiator in the arenas. Emperor Callus took him in and gave him command of the Red Legion. Gaul assembled several other conspirators, including Callus's daughter, to overthrow him and imprison Leviathan. Gaul reorganized Cabal society into what it is today, and which is very warmongering. The Cabal soldiers don't have citizenship, and the only way they can come home is if through victory. Gaul received a distress call from the Skyburners Legion, which had crashed their ship, the Dentalian Exodus 6, into Oryx's dreadnought to kill Oryx, but were stopped by the Guardians in the Hive. And so Gaul was asked to take care of business. The Red Legion arrived 2 years later and caged the Traveler and cutting off all Guardians from their light. He sought to claim the light for himself with help from the Speaker of the Traveler to be a Cabal Guardian. When the Traveler did not bless him, the consul killed the Speaker. In anger, Gaul then killed the consul and took the light for himself, and then we killed him right after.
Yay! In a a mission that is easy to break now, but hilarious to do so. Have you ever broken that mission?
I probably have.
So if you
Are you talking about
do
when you kill him so fast that it doesn't
Yes.
register?
So yeah, you kill him so fast that he goes into model mode, which basically goes into T-pose. And he stands there and he makes all the sounds, but he's just in that model, like arms stretched out in that crucifix type shape. And everything happens like it's supposed to, but he looks more terrifying because he's just standing there like a scary Jesus that's gonna chase you down and hurt you.
He died for our light.
He died for That's terrifying and hilarious. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So Gaul is represented as Rage, Nightmare Hunt, and while he did seem to remain cool and level-headed throughout the Red War, and even in Callus's recollection of him through the Leviathan lore pieces, he grew frustrated and angry towards the end, killing the consul's vengeance for the speaker of the Traveler and telling him what to do. Which I find ironic because in the hit list that Callus sent out, he requested that the consul be killed by his own weapon, and in the end, Gaul did it.
Which is ironic because Gaul is his weapon. So I hear you.
So Eris references also in this page. Eris references the Vault of Glass raid in the quote, "I often wonder whether I was chosen or whether I made a choice in my journey through this life. Did fate make me, or did I make my own fate?" Which, as a lot of people know, when you successfully kill all 6 oracles in the past or future during the Atheon fight, you receive the message, Guardians make their own fate, and you gain the buff Times of Vengeance, in which you gain your super extraordinarily fast.
I forgot about that. I don't know if I ever actually got that buff. My raid team was not very good.
Do it. No,
right.
That's how the mechanic works. Is that's how you do tons of damage to Gaul. Is not Gaul, to Atheon.
Oh God, that'd be terrifying.
So when the relic holder is holding the relic, Times Vengeance is keeping their super up so they can maintain the shield. And so then everybody pours in damage, and all the hunters pop Celestial Night Watch, which is what
and we just push them off the edge. And
no, you can do that.
Yeah, they put the baby bumpers up to prevent that.
I remember.
Oh, but that was
also
only 3. You could do it. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, they got mad at us when we did it to the Templar. They're like, "No, you can't do that anymore." Oh. Yeah. Also, don't throw rocket launchers in the bubble because it's a bubble.
Or grenades.
Grenades.
I've thrown trip mines thinking I'm about to do hella damage, so that kills me right away.
Oh no.
The shenanigans that happened in the vault year 1 are just amazing.
Because everybody's standing in that bubble, everybody knows you did it.
Yep.
The best one is the random person that without fail would fall off the island.
It's not a very big spot. To be fair, I've done that more than once. It's not very big.
Titans putting up the Word of Dawn, but they missed the jump, and they just popped their bubble in oblivion.
Oh yeah, because you plunged down.
I've seen that happen more than a few times.
Oh my God. The best part is that the shirt that they made, I can't remember who did it. Was it Twas that made I can't remember.
I don't remember.
But if you look at the one for the Vault of Glass, it has a Guardian falling off the island in the bottom of it. It's like, yep, that's 100% accurate. My only call out for this one was that, again, Eris empathizes with the sense of that, like, kind of that anger of, like, not knowing, and was she actually chosen, or did she choose? Like, who is that? He also, kind of calls out that she was relieved when Gaul was defeated. Because the destruction of Gaul by the Traveler was kind of reaffirming. I like that she spares no pity for Gaul. He was a wretched creature who got what he deserved.
Also interesting to note is that a lot of the Red War campaign, have the cutscenes with Gaul, is often him asking why the Traveler won't choose him.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like we know why, but like Gaul doesn't fathom that because he's a terrible person, he's an a-hole, that the Traveler wouldn't choose him.
Well, and I
But
think
there's
that
also,
goes back to the old explanation when Destiny 2 first was coming out, and I think it was Luke Smith kept saying, in Gaul's story, he is the hero.
Right, which is how you want any good villain to be
Right,
portrayed.
right,
You
right,
want them
right,
to be
right.
the hero of their own story.
there was a Wisecrack video that came out when Destiny 2 launched about the Red War that was really interesting, and how it's like philosophical things like trying to make your god see you, like to acknowledge your own existence.
Hmm.
And ultimately what the Traveler did is said, yeah, I see you, not anymore, and obliterates them.
Yes. All right, so last three. You ready? Fanatic.
Zydron.
Oh, we skipped
We got
Zydron.
we got to
I'm
get through
sorry.
the gate first.
All right, get through the gate. Do the thing. I was trying to skip it.
You have to be in service to the Gate Lord.
No,
Well,
that
Zydron.
strike. Oh my god, that
Wasn't even a
strike.
It was
This
the
was a
easiest
story
strike
mission.
ever. What
It
are you
was.
talking
Everyone
about?
farmed it to death. No. I
This
don't like.
wasn't a, this was a story mission. It wasn't a strike.
That's
Oh yeah,
right.
that's right.
That was a
That's
story
right.
mission.
It was. That's why it was
Oh
so
my
easy.
gosh.
I just remember
Worst.
that was when Icebreaker. That was one of the moments that it was like, you're shining so strong, Icebreaker.
Stand at the bottom
Stand
of
at
the
the
freaking hill.
back on the wall. So Zydron was actually the original big bad of the vanilla campaign. Oh no, it wasn't. He was
No.
He was halfway through.
halfway
that quest.
through
Yes.
it. He allowed us to get to the original big bad. He was the one that we got to have
The Eye of the Gate Lord.
the snarky snark with Uldren. One of the first snarky snarks with him was when we dumped his head at Uldren's feet. Zydron is also the essence of servitude, which we kind of talked about in the intro episode about how Eris seems to project her sense of independence on a Vex, which is, and not just, was it just Zydron? Was it just the Gate Lords, or was it the whole Vex?
I think it was all of Gate Lords. She didn't mention Zydron.
Yeah, that's right. She Vex Gate Lords.
There was another thing that's not really related to the nightmare is that that quest, the Fruit of the Garden. Well, that's how it was reorganized in year 2 of Destiny 1. So Zydron's head is taken to Mars by the Guardian, and Prince Uldren gives its eye to the Guardian, sent to charge it on Mars to gain access to Black Garden and its heart. So now there are 3 known entrances to the Black Garden. The portal in the Valley of Kings on Mars, which is opened by the Guardian in that same quest. The entrance in Traxxas Station in Freehold, opened by Oryx during the Taken War. And underneath the lunar surface near the Scarlet Keep on the Moon, opened by the Vex and the Guardians. The portals on Mars are likely destroyed due to Red Legion bombardment during the Red War, which was given by idle dialogue from Cade during year 1.
Yeah, I got nothing on this one. They redid that mission. You remember that? Towards the end of D1?
What, for Zydron?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that was when we did wasn't that House of Wolves that they did that in? They changed it so it was Prison Hunt.
I don't remember.
I
just remember it got a lot harder towards the end of D1. Let's see here. Fanatic. Unless Blue has something else to add to it.
No. We already talked about Zydron a bit.
Yep. Fickrel.
So Fickrel, the Fanatic, was a former fallen Archon who was gravely wounded by Guardians. Also of note, he's one of the few Elixni, or at least former Elixni, to remember the whirlwind. Uldren, already being influenced by Riven through a specter of his sister, treated Fickrell's wounds and made a silent wish for his well-being. Riven heard the wish and granted it, converting Fickrell into the first Scorn. Fickrell pledged allegiance to Uldren for his help, even calling him father. Uldren and the Fanatic dismantled the House of Kings by killing their Kel Krask. This allowed all Fallen to unite into the House of Dusk under Rain's colors and symbol. Fickrell and Uldren were captured by Cade Six, along with the other Scorned Barons, and imprisoned. Varix freed everybody from the prison, and in subsequent riot, Cade Six was killed by Uldren and the Scorned Barons. Even after being killed by the Guardian in vengeance, he still shows up on the shore and is frequently killed by Guardian strike teams trying to get Mindbender's ambition. The Fanatic is represented as insanity in the Nightmare Hunt, reflecting his depraved philosophies and desire to turn all Fallen into Scorn.
He also has some of the most disturbing dialogue in that strike.
I like that a lot. I like that strike.
He's the one, like, as far as strike bosses go, he will call you out for being a dead thing. Which is like, you know what?
The only
you
second time that happens, like, because there was that, well, not us specifically, there was Legends Black Garden, where Punjari was called as a "you are a dead thing" made by a dead power in the shape of the dead. All you will ever do is kill. And that's really interesting that the Fickrell
will call out almost the exact thing verbatim.
Yeah. Actually, the one thing I don't like about it is the Fanatic's immunity phases. That's the only thing I don't like about the strike. Otherwise, it's fine.
Wait, no way. No. Dino.
Not liking Fanatic's immunity phases?
No. Dino in chat. No, he's not. No way.
I'm not looking at chat, so I don't know what it is.
Dino claims with a kappa included, so just fair warning, there's a kappa in there, that he's voiced by Matthew Mercer. It's high noon. I'm like,
He is.
Is he gonna summon Star
Is he really?
Platinum?
Yep. He also
that
is.
So
he is
weird.
also Matthew Mercer is also the human male voice.
Oh, I knew that one.
Not that we ever hear it. But yes.
Weird. All right, Crota. Crota we kind of talked about earlier as far as being the bad guy for the Crota Fire team from the beginning that we mentioned.
Yep. So Crota, son of Oryx, was the crown prince of the Hive. At birth, he was already blessed with the title Eater of Hope by his father and became a powerful ascendant Hive on his own. After a unfortunate mishap with the Vex invasion of Oryx, Oryx commanded his son to return victorious or die forgotten, throwing him into the Vex gate by his ankle. Crota had command of
I still want the emote for that.
Yeah. That'd be a good multiplayer emote. Crota had command of all Hive in the solar system until his death. He slaughtered thousands of Guardians during the Great Disaster, including Wei Ning. However, due to an accident with a powerful knight falling to his death, Crota was left weakened and hungry after the Great Disaster and retired to his throne. After a failed attempt by Ariana III and her fire team to kill Crota, Eris Morn sent the Guardian to dismantle an impending Hive invasion of Earth and Crota's return, killing him in his throne. Crota is represented as despair in the Nightmare Hunt, which represents the feelings he brings to it in his opponents by his very presence, and also when he goes into the safe room during the raid.
Yeah,
it's
fair.
Not funny. It's the most that's the closest to a heart attack I think I've had for a while. It's like you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. It also is a nod to the Eater of Hope, because despair is the destruction of hope.
Oh, yeah.
And last but not least, regarding the pyramid, this one I'm interested to see what you guys talk about on this one.
Do you want to mention how Eris is feeling at this point? This is a big one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, anger?
No. She empathizes with the essence of despair. She says that, The peace I felt learning of his demise at the hands, blah, blah, blah. The darkness will win. I can sense it already. I swore I would go on. I can no longer swear this. Always failing. Relieve me. She's lost her will to kind of live. She did mention, I think it was with the fanatic, she had started to lose her grip on being able to find the light. And so this is kind of the culmination of, this is where she is at her lowest. She is, she's in the grips of despair. I think if I remember correctly, this is the one that we got right before the creepy scene. And then regarding the pyramid is the one that we were talking about, comes right after. So this is where her mind was when prior to, and then following we see regarding the pyramid.
All right, regarding the pyramid, our final card.
So this is actually 3 letters. The one was deleted and intended to Queen Mara Saw. The first letter is telling Mara how difficult her experience is. She mentions that while Eris does not want to betray her, she wants to be free of her pain and is scared of doing so. The second one was delivered. She reasserts that because the darkness thinks because the darkness doesn't think Guardians a threat, they can win. She will meet the queen in her court. And then the third letter was to Ikora, thanking her for her confidence in her and Vanguard support.
Blue.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's really kind of the thing. It's an update that is sent to both Mara and Ikora, kind of regarding the experience that she had with the pyramid. I do, from the point of view that we kind of talking about with Eris and her headspace. I like how you see where she starts, because it's kind of like this raw, vulnerable thing, and then she pretties it up basically, and then sends it to Mara, and then her words to Ikora, we kind of already talked about that a little bit at the end of the intro session. She says, pain is something that never truly goes away. It is something you live with, hoping it makes you stronger as you learn to cope. You cannot bury it, you can't nor hide from it. There is power in acknowledging it. And so that's where I do kind of see the whole kind of arc of this particular story kind of going. She admits that it is not over. She says, having faced so many of the demons that haunted me, I finally feel a sense of closure on the horizon. So she hasn't gotten closure, but she is, by opening that box that had been buried inside of her mind and actually letting the demons out and facing them, she has been able to at least begin healing. I think that was really, what I really liked about this particular entry. And I want to say, I'm trying to remember which. I cannot remember which particular ship it was. I'm going to look for it real quick. But there was the ship that she had for the Shadow Keep was really, really well stated. Let me see if I can find that real quick. You guys can keep talking.
I'm trying to think of as far as like the overarching emotional tie-ins. You talked about the aspects of like the anger and pride and stuff like that. You have a very descent into the rings of hell if you go into like the Dante's aspect going in here, and it's very you get Toland there too, because Toland moves to the moon and he's there taunting you the entire time. while you're on these patrols and out in the normal world. It is very much so a walk through Dante's Inferno in some respects, going through these different stages of Eris. She's kind of sort of growing through it, but at the same time, there's aspects where it's like she's succumbing to the aspects that are in there, the darkness that is in there. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Eris ever since that scene. Like, if we were just to get this book and deal with the lore of the book and not have that cutscene at all, I would not think twice about Eris's allegiance. Just know that she's still kind of broken and not entirely sure of what she's doing. Whereas now with this book and that cutscene in particular, it calls into question so much of her loyalty that it's a little terrifying.
Right.
I don't
And
know.
the one that I was thinking of, thanks Black Flag, is refashioned shapes. And the quote from Eris is, "Recovery is a spiral, not a circle. You may return to the same patterns, but you will break free." Dino's saying too, this is the most distressing entry because not a lot gets to Eris, but she feels shame because she cracked that smile. And he goes on to say, "It's one thing to fight a monster that wants to harm you. It's entirely different when the monster makes you feel good." And I would add that the only thing that can also slip in there is because what happened, what I immediately think of when I read that was, because when you hunt monsters, you have to be careful not to become a monster. And if you become a monster and the monsters that you're hunting are starting to recognize you as one of them, what does that mean? What you have to be careful about that. And that's where, she's constantly reaffirming to people, our purpose is good, our purpose is good, our purpose is good and true. She admits that, she's made mistakes. She's made her past and her mistakes and her trauma. And, she's constantly talking about how she wants to, use those to regain the light, to come out of the darkness. I really, really like that part. I think, what is it, to Mara, she says, "The darkness needs a reason to fear our light, and I intend to prove it."
That's a bit of that hubris coming in.
It is, but it's also because it's anger, because it's the whole thing, because it's following right on the feels of, I detect no fear on the part of our nemesis. We aren't even a concern. We pose no threat. And then she says, "The darkness needs a reason to fear our light, and I intend to prove it. I've been inside. I have nothing but beautiful and violent words for my report." So, I mean, it was the whole thing of, like, she's acknowledging that the darkness did an extremely, or what was it, orchestrated its plan magnificently. And then in the section that she deleted, she said, "Do not mistake my weakness for betrayal." And I think that's the shame that she has for what happened, because she faltered, and she allowed herself for a moment to feel, what she said, so free of care, recklessly abandoning hope, which is another kind of a nod to the Dante's Inferno.
Yeah. Eris is in a bad place, guys. And the thing is we left her on the moon by herself, and nothing has changed.
I visit
Well,
her.
I would argue that she's in a better place than she was at the start.
Right, because she doesn't have her team haunting her anymore.
Well,
at least if you finish those missions.
Right. And also because the process of, and that kind of goes back to my question that I asked originally, whose nightmares are we dealing with? Because if you look at the process of what those nightmares lead into through the Essence quests and the Lantern of Enchantment, we take those core, negative emotions that are in those nightmares, and we purify them to make us more powerful. But if we're actually purifying them, if we're actually, we're healing them, That's the whole thing, is like this whole thing can be tied into a psychological process of healing.
Right. It is a healing, but at the same time, it's not, you're not bypassing or like getting rid of them per se. You're
No,
learning
no, 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 no,
acceptance.
no, no, no.
That's the whole point of it. It's learning
Right.
acceptance of what's happened.
Yeah, I mean
And
that's the whole
it's
this whole
Eris
part.
forgiving herself at the end of it.
Right. Because that's the
That is
grief process. Is the final
right.
stage is always going to be acceptance.
That is, and right, and that's the whole point of Eris's nightmares. Each time we bring her an artifact of her former fire team, she beats herself up the entire time we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so our healing process for Eris isn't necessarily just Eris is going through and we're bringing her these pieces and she's remembering them for their true selves. Eris is also very much so having to forgive herself for their deaths because she's blamed herself this entire time. That's the whole thing with Eris, is that she's never forgiven herself for what happened on the moon, even though it wasn't her fault. It was Toland's fault, but it wasn't her fault.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it kind of was her fault, but
Kind of, but it was really Toland and Ariana's.
It's
Toland
not.
and
I mean,
Ariana.
it's kind of insofar as like you can argue that, you know, yeah, it's a reduction theory there, but I mean, like, you know, the stages of grief, you know, the common five, I think it's 5 stages. It's like you have the traumatic event, then you have denial, anger, depression. Usually it's like bargaining or testing, depending on which model you're looking at, and then finally it's acceptance.
Right.
And sometimes they're like depending on the model that you're looking at, it's either 5, 7. I think there's a 9 stage. There's you know, different things, but it always kind of ends with that acceptance, and that's what I love about this particular entry, is that it's not saying that they're done, and that's where she says, you know, she even calls that out too. She's like, the closure is on the horizon. You know, technically no one will ever get 100% acceptance. Like, trauma is called trauma because of what it does to a person. It will always be there. You're never going to get rid of even the mental scars that happens, but you can come to terms and accept that it happened. You know, that's where the compartmentalization is so unhealthy, is that's why denial doesn't really work. It's still there. And you have to open that up and look at it, you know, however that is given within any kind of program, if you will, to move on, to allow that to become a part of you and acknowledge that it is a part of you, and then move on with that, because your experiences, they shape you, but they don't necessarily define you. They are the catalyst for a process that is progress. And that's what's important to remember. And that's what I read here with Eris, is like, you know, she's like, I will not be weighed down by the dark in my past, you know, and she goes on to say, instead, I will use them to lift me up into the light. That's where, you know, she's taking the mistakes that she's made, the trauma that she's experienced, her past life, and she's using those experiences to guide her into something better. And that's where it ties into the refashioned shapes, where she says it's not a circle. It's a spiral, and you know, you will return. You fall back in the same ruts, but you always,
even if she makes a terrible mistake mid-season, but you know, whatever.
Everyone makes mistakes.
I know, and that's the point of the book, but it's interesting to dive into not only the purpose of the book as in regards to Eris, but also our own characters.
Mm-hmm.
Because our own characters are constantly having to not only relive each of these instances just because pure game mechanics, but also struggling with self-identity and our own failures with it.
Mm-hmm.
Our own failure with Cade in particular.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think that's one of the interesting introductions that this provides for that.
Right.
I don't know. Is there any other book that really does it the same way?
Like talking about like the grief process, or just like a
Mm-hmm.
psychological. What do you
Oh,
mean?
just giving the Guardians a chance to process their own grief and process their own humanity through it.
Mm,
There was a Eververse ship from last season called Saint's Invocation that was kind of acknowledging our own humanity. Where Saint 14 asks you like, "Hey, whatever you need to do to de-stress and like take your mind off what's out there, do it." Like it could be cleaning your vault, it could be doing whatever.
yeah, and then
But
there
I
was
think that's the
also,
closest that you would get to something like that.
well, you also had Cade's, I think, what is it? Cade's memoirs, where he kind of lets the veil fall and talks about what he does, how he sees the world, if you will. Where he's talking about like even if Ace isn't real, he still pretends he's real because it helps him become a better person and all that. Like
Mm-hmm.
he actually goes, you actually see the psychological kind of wheels, if you will, of Cade's psyche, and it really it encourages you, encourages, I thought it encouraged some self-examination of the Guardian as you were reading it. You also have the entire thing with Shin. I mean, throughout the entire arc that he kind of did was all about questioning what is right, what is wrong, what is light, what is dark. Is light right, or is it just light? That whole kind of introduction of the grays of the world was kind of another instance of self-examination, I think.
There was also the lore tab for the Oxygen Scout Rifle from season
Yes. Oh my
6,
gosh, that was such a good.
where
Oxygen SR3.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Ikora and Zavala kind of question the purpose of the Vanguard now that Cade's dead and like all
Well, if it's even needed
stuff.
anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the nice thing is that this the first time we've talked about our own, we've talked about Cade's a little bit, but Eris has always been such a closed off individual
Yes,
as
right.
far as her own emotional connection to us. It's the first time we've really been able to see inside her own emotional state. It's like
Mm,
if we got to see inside Mara's head a little bit more.
that's terrifying,
That's
but
how.
yes.
Yeah, right, right. But like that's the same thing. Eris is just a little bit more creepy and broken in her own way, even though Mara's probably way, way more intense
Mm-hmm.
and probably a lot darker in a lot of ways. But it's a way to see inside their psyche and their emotional state going through all of this, and it's nice. Do we have any final thoughts on this
There
book,
was,
or
sorry. Oh, yeah, there was one more. I just remembered. The Forsaken Prince,
right, Aldrin's?
Aldrin's, and Eva's journey a little bit, but I mean, Eva's always been more open with her quotes, but it was nice getting the collection of Eva's journey. But the Forsaken Prince definitely, and I mean, the Awoken of the Reef and the Dreaming City did a little bit to open up Mara's, like, as much as you can open up Mara's things, like her head. But the Forsaken Prince did a really good job of kind of showing Aldrin's um, damage. I don't know if that's the right
Yeah,
word for it, but like
Understatement.
I
his
mean, he
his
is damaged.
he is, and like, but like the causes of his like fascination with Mara and proving himself to her.
Cool. Any final thoughts on the book before we close out?
I really, really, really like this one, because it calls out, like, like we've been saying, like the process of going through grief and going through in so far its ways depression. I don't know. I kind of, with the pieces that she presented, I kind of connected a lot with Eris on her struggles for this particular one, in so much as you can, since we don't have guardian powers in reality.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Um,
It is
one
nice.
one thing I kept thinking about is like how this is kind of relating to uh the story of Shadowkeep as a year of content rather than just the Shadowkeep expansion and Season of the Undying. Is that how we're like? It's kind of like I feel like year 3 of Destiny 2 has been about like gather like one part is like gathering strength, but also like reaffirming who we are in terms of our enemies. And
Hmm.
because like we have the nightmares on the moon, which ask us the question, um, how do we feel in a sense, um, and then we get of course revelations with the pyramid and the Black Garden, and then like we have Season of Dawn, which has us get an old hero back and has us like we're gathering these powerful people, and like now we're getting Rasputin, and we're slowly like kind of actualizing ourselves in the like before this our second collapse comes. Like we're working on forming our final argument against the darkness.
Yeah, I can see that. Our final argument, though, I think, is wholly dependent on do we understand what the darkness is at this point. And I think this book gives us a better insight, as at least through Eris's eyes, on what she thinks the darkness is doing. And it gives us an insight into how the darkness is going to, quote unquote, attack us. It's going to attack from within. Because,
Which I also find interesting for a first-person shooter.
right? A lot more deep than the typical. There's a bunch of enemies in hell that you must go and defeat as a warrior that goes through hell, like Doom, like
I was just thinking
Doom Eternal.
heavy metal in the background,
Yes.
or not even the background, just right there, surrounding it.
You guys ready for shoutouts?
I think so.
Cool. Neil, what shoutouts do you have for the advanced episode?
Um, my shout outs are I want to shout out to my clan, Paracausal Activity. I want to shout out to my girlfriend for listening to me talk lore for the past 3 hours. She's been watching this episode and enabling my addiction. And then I
There you go. There
also
you go.
want an ironic shout out to this quarantine for making me level up for trial.
Nice. Cool. My shout out goes to my teammates, my fire teammates who are going into trials with me for having patience because I have never gone to the lighthouse and I really want it. And I may make some really stupid mistakes trying to get there. So, yeah. Shout out to all the fire teams who have never gone into trials and never gone to the lighthouse but really want to try this time. Feeling like it's going to be a little bit better. Keep doing it. I'll see you soon. I'll wreck your face and then you can quit. No, I'm kidding. No, just don't give up. It's a learning process. Like I am better at 6v6. I am learning than 3v3. And it's a totally different landscape in a trial situation versus a normal crucible situation. So give yourself time to relax and breathe and take each loss as a learning opportunity and move forward. You'll eventually get there.
You sound
As
like
will
those
I.
guys.
That's
Hopefully.
why.
I am well aware of my lacking currently in trials and it's frustrating and I want to be there now, but I'm not there yet.
Green, no
So.
sniping.
I actually am going to be putting on snipers more often because I need to figure out how to do that because that is apparently a thing rather than bows. Because
You have
bows
a
work great in sixes because bows allow you to team shot better.
Mm-hmm.
But you need a sniper in trials to take their head off because you only get one shot, is what I'm
Unless you have
learning.
a Revoker and you get as many shots as you miss.
Well, yeah, but like meaning that you only get that one shot before you get sniped in the face. Like, there's not a whole lot of leeway unless you are super, super speedy. Anyway. Yes, that is my shout out. Crucible shenanigans.
Crucible shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you guys sticking with us, and the live chat. Thank you so much for coming out. As always, thank you for your time, and until next time, remember: with wisdom we conquer. Stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring. I was going to ask you, Green, is Julie going to be getting that new Animal Crossing?
We don't have a Switch. I think it's only on Switch, isn't it?
You're asking the wrong person. I don't even understand the fascination with Animal Crossing. So
it's the same fascination as Stardew Valley.
Is it the same type of game?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It really is. It's something I'm very tempted to get for Julie, because she was talking about yesterday how she wanted a different game besides Stardew Valley. She's kind of burned out on it. And I thought Animal Crossing might be a really good option for her. But again, if it's only on Switch, I can't do that.
Yeah, it looks like it's a Nintendo only.
Yeah. But
can I play Animal Crossing on my computer?
No.
That would mean my wife would have to actually play something on her computer, which is a Mac that is over 12 years old.
Yeah,
so
nope, that's not going to happen. Sorry.
No.
Does Animal Crossing have an ending?
Stardew Valley doesn't.
When you decide it has an ending.
What system am I going on the lighthouse?
Exactly what this says. You can move on when you've completed whatever keeps you playing.
Doom, I'm currently working on trying to do it on PlayStation, just because that's where I'm most comfortable. But we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. We shall see. I am just going to keep practicing and keep grinding and hopefully get to a light level where I'm not going to get wrecked super easily, even though that seems to be the case at the moment. Yeah, I actually like Anomaly. I like multi-tier maps because I'm one of those shotgunners who will take advantage of it, but it's too much right now, and it's too new of a map to really feel comfortable. I'm going to revive you just in time so you can get hit by the wall. Hate hyperaggression. Actually, Black Flag, I'm learning that is kind of my forte now. Like, I'm going in with teams that tend to sit back a little bit more, and so I am playing the flanker who's coming up from the side and trying to take people out without them knowing, using my invisibility to get me close enough to where they don't know I'm there. Okay. What did you send me, Blue?
All the good stuff.
Aww. Yay. I'm glad Minion's happy about that.
Yeah, so am
also, how many hands is that horse?
14 and a half.
Okay. So a pretty good size one.
Yeah, he's a good kid size.
I'm trying to remember how big the one that I grew up on. I think mine was like a pony when I was really young, like 12 and a half
so like
hands
10
maybe.
Hand? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was an Appaloosa.
Oh, okay, yeah. Probably 12 to 14 most times. I think they average like 13-ish.
Yeah. And then my mom had I want to say 15 hand one. Quarter horse, big quarter horse.
Yep, 15, yeah. Mine, Strider was 17 and a half hands.
That's a big horse.
Yeah, he was a big puppy dog is what he was. He thought he was the size of a teacup poodle.
Oh, jeez.
He decided often to try to sit in people's laps, and it did not hit well.
Oh, Lord. All right, Neo. So one thing, I'm going to put it in chat as soon as I can find a hiding place to not get sniped out by these taken snipers. I'm going to put something in chat. You can send it over whenever you get a chance, hopefully within the next week type thing. But
Green, are you going to
Wait,
jump
the
into
Discord
streaming?
chat or the Twitch chat?
streaming right now?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, cool.
No, I'm just running strikes with Wicked and Raz.
All right, fair enough.
But
Stream,
thank you
you
for
guys. Oh, go for it.
Thank you for the option for that to
Oh, yeah,
have the
definitely.
transfer over.
I think you should be set up so that we automatically host you.
Yeah, I
Okay,
am.
perfect. Okay. Stream, you guys have a great night. We will see you either next week, or if you're in Discord and you need to chat, please don't hesitate to give us a shout. Have a great night. Get some sleep. Wash your hands. All that good stuff.
Vampire cough.
Yes, that's an excellent visual and explanation for that. All right,
You
stream.
can thank my fan.
Have a good night.